I never thought my family would turn against me, but as I stood in that fancy boardroom, staring at my Uncle James's angry, red face, I realized family doesn't always have your back. You have no right to be here, Alexandra, Uncle James shouted, his voice booming in the quiet room. Security, get my niece out of here. The two security guards looked uncomfortable. They'd known me since I was a kid running around this office. Before they could act, I raised my hand. Actually, as a major shareholder of Blackwell Enterprises, I have every right to be here, I said, trying to keep my voice steady even though my heart was racing, especially since we're talking about the missing $4.7 million from our accounts. Let me explain. I'm Alexandra Blackwell. 3 months ago, I was the Chief Financial Officer, CFO, of Blackwell Enterprises, the company my grandfather built from nothing into a $200 million business. After my dad died unexpectedly last year, I stepped up to help run the family business with my uncle, who became CEO, but what I found in the financial records kept me up at night. Growing up, I knew the family business was important. My grandfather, Richard Blackwell, started it all in 1965 with one truck and a dream. By the time I was born, Blackwell Enterprises had built half the city. My earliest memories are of sitting on my dad's lap in his office, looking at blueprints. Remember, Alex, my dad would say kindly but seriously, this company isn't just about buildings, it's about trust. People trust us with their dreams. I took that lesson to heart. After getting my MBA, I joined the company and worked my way up through every department, just like my dad wanted. You earn respect by knowing this business inside and out, he always said. By age 30, I was the youngest CFO the company ever had, working right beside my dad, who had taken over as CEO after my grandpa retired. We made a good team. Dad was the big picture guy, everyone loved him. I was the one keeping track of the money, making sure we grew steadily. Then the accident happened. Dad went to inspect one of our construction sites, just like he did every month, but something went wrong, and the scaffolding collapsed. They said it was an accident, but it left Blackwell Enterprises without its heart and soul. At the funeral, Uncle James put his arm around me. Don't worry, Alex, we'll get through this together. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was my dad's brother, my godfather, the man who taught me to ride a bike and brought me ice cream when I was sick. I trusted him completely. 2 weeks after the funeral, the board made Uncle James the CEO. It made sense. He had been the Chief Operating Officer, COO, for years. I stayed on as CFO, trying to keep things steady during such a hard time. I threw myself into work, wanting to keep my dad's dream alive. Uncle James seemed just as committed, working late and making big business plans. But during one of my financial reviews, I found something strange. Payments to a company called Oceanic Consulting Group, 5 transfers over 3 months, adding up to $4.7 million. What's Oceanic Consulting? I asked in a meeting. Uncle James didn't even look up. New consultants. They're helping us expand into the Asian market. I don't remember approving that expense, I said. He smiled, but his eyes stayed cold. The board approved it while you were taking care of your mom. We didn't want to bother you. It seemed reasonable. I had spent a week with my mom, who was having a hard time after Dad died, but something still felt wrong. I asked Diane, our corporate secretary, for the meeting notes. What meeting? She replied, looking confused. That night, I dug through the records. I found out Oceanic Consulting Group was created only 3 months ago, with an address in the Cayman Islands, and its only director, JB Holdings. James Blackwell Holdings. My uncle was stealing from our company. I spent the next week collecting evidence, carefully recording every shady transaction. It wasn't just the payments to Oceanic. There were other things: inflated project costs, fake subcontractors, properties bought at low prices and sold for big profits to shell companies. Altogether, nearly $12 million had been taken from Blackwell Enterprises since my dad's death. The night before I planned to show my findings to the board, Patricia Winters, the board chairperson and my dad's oldest friend, called me. Alexandra, I need to see you in my office tomorrow at 8 a.m. It's urgent. Why, Patty? I asked, feeling nervous. It's better if we talk in person. When I arrived the next morning, the whole executive committee was there. Uncle James sat next to Patricia, looking serious but smug. Alexandra, Patricia said formally, we have serious concerns about financial issues under your management as CFO. I felt like someone had punched me. What? She slid a folder toward me. These documents show evidence of financial misconduct. Possibly embezzlement. My hands shook as I opened the folder. The documents were altered to make it look like I was the one stealing from the company. This is impossible, I said. These records have been faked. We had 2 independent auditors review them, another board member said. It looks pretty convincing, Alexandra. I glanced at my uncle. He looked at me with a disappointed expression so perfect it had to be rehearsed. James is behind this, I said, my voice shaking. He's been stealing from the company for months. I have proof. Alex, Uncle James interrupted, sounding gentle. We're all struggling after your father's death, but accusing me to cover your own mistakes? That's low. Due to these accusations, Patricia said, the board has voted to suspend you until a full investigation is done. You need to hand over all your company devices before you leave. I looked at the board members, people who had known me my entire life, but none of them stood up for me, except Gerald Thompson, my dad's old friend, who looked thoughtful but said nothing. I stood up, feeling like I'd lost everything. You're making a terrible mistake. As I walked away, Uncle James caught up with me at the elevator. You should have stayed focused on the numbers and left the big decisions to me, he whispered. Your father always knew you weren't cut out for real leadership. The elevator doors opened, and I stepped inside, his cruel words echoing in my mind. Enjoy your early retirement. As the elevator doors closed, my uncle's mocking words echoed in my mind. The next 3 months were the worst of my life. The investigation dragged on, controlled by my uncle to keep me away from the company. The board froze my shares, so I couldn't vote or sell them. My reputation was ruined. No one wanted to hire a CFO accused of stealing money. But I didn't give up. I still had friends at Blackwell Enterprises, people loyal to my father and suspicious of how quickly my uncle turned against me. They helped me gather evidence, piece by piece. I also reached out to Gerald Thompson, the one board member who seemed to doubt my guilt. We met at his fishing cabin, far from prying eyes. I always thought something was strange about your father's accident, Gerald said, watching the sunset over the lake. The safety systems at that site were top-notch. Your dad made sure of it. A chill ran down my spine. You think it wasn't an accident? Gerald sighed. I don't know, but your uncle took control so quickly, like he was ready for it. Help me, Gerald, I said. Help me get back into that boardroom. 3 months later, I stood before the Blackwell Enterprises board, uninvited but determined, with Gerald by my side and a flash drive full of evidence in my hand. The quarterly shareholders meeting is public, Gerald reminded the security guards who tried to stop me. Ms. Blackwell is still a major shareholder. Facing my uncle's furious gaze, I felt strangely calm. I have proof, I said, holding up the flash drive, proof that not only clears my name but also shows where the missing $4.7 million went, and the other $7.3 million that disappeared after that. Uncle James laughed, but I could see the fear in his eyes. This is ridiculous. The board has already seen the evidence against you. They saw what you wanted them to see, I said, fake documents, manipulated records, but they haven't seen this. Gerald plugged the flash drive into the projector. On the screen appeared banking records, ownership documents, and property transfers, all neatly organized. Oceanic Consulting Group, I explained, is owned by JB Holdings, which is controlled by James Blackwell. The $4.7 million went straight into his personal accounts. The boardroom erupted. Uncle James yelled over the noise, his face red with rage. This is slander. She made all of this up. Patricia Winters, the board's chairperson, banged her gavel. Order, we need order. When the room quieted, she turned to me. Alexandra, these are serious claims. How can we verify this? I smiled for the first time in months. I expected that question. That's why I invited forensic accountants who were waiting outside with a court order to access Blackwell's systems. Uncle James lunged at me, but the security guards held him back. You'll regret this, he spat, echoing the words I'd said to him months ago. I don't think I will, I replied calmly. For the next 4 hours, the accountants worked while the board waited, and my uncle sat in furious silence. When the lead accountant returned, her expression was grim. Ms. Blackwell's allegations are confirmed. The funds were transferred to entities controlled by Mr. James Blackwell. The boardroom fell silent. There's more, the accountant continued. We also found proof that Mr. Blackwell falsified safety inspection reports at several construction sites, including the one where Robert Blackwell died. The room went dead quiet. The truth hit me like a punch. Patricia's voice shook. Are you saying Yes, the accountant said. There's enough evidence for a criminal investigation into both financial crimes and possible negligent homicide. Uncle James jumped up and ran for the door but was caught by two detectives who had arrived after the accountants called them. As they led him away in handcuffs, he looked at me one last time, his eyes filled with pure hatred. It would have terrified me before. Now, I just felt sorry for him. The board needs to hold an emergency meeting, Patricia said, her voice steadier now. Alexandra, please wait outside. I left the room, exhausted but victorious. Gerald joined me in the hallway. Your father would be proud, he said, patting my shoulder. You fought for the truth, just like he always did. An hour later, Patricia came out of the boardroom. The board has voted to reinstate you, Alexandra, not as CFO, but as acting CEO, effective immediately. We have a lot of work to do to fix the damage and restore your reputation. We're truly sorry for what happened. I thought about walking away, but then I remembered all the employees who depended on Blackwell Enterprises, all the projects my father cared about, and the legacy my grandfather built. I accept, I said, but on one condition. What is it? We create the Robert Blackwell Memorial Fund for construction safety, and we fund it with every penny my uncle stole. Patricia's eyes filled with tears. Consider it done. The following months were tough. The company's reputation took a hit when the scandal went public. Several projects were delayed for safety reviews, and my uncle's legal battles exposed even more corruption. But we survived. More than that, we became stronger, more transparent, and more committed to the values my father and grandfather built the company on. A year later, I stood on a podium at the grand opening of Blackwell Plaza, my father's dream project. Some tried to destroy our legacy, I told the crowd, but they learned the hard way that a foundation built on lies will always collapse. Later, sitting in my father's old office, I looked out over the city skyline and whispered, "We did it, Dad. The company is safe, and so is your legacy." Deep down, I felt his pride, his love, and the strength he had passed on to me.
The sound of my mother-in-law's voice drifted up the stairs, sharp and critical as ever. She's up there again, probably crying herself to sleep. How is she going to raise these children properly if she can't even pull herself together? I pressed my palms against my eyes, willing the tears to stop. My name is Natasha, and 3 weeks ago, I lost my husband Taylor to a sudden heart attack. Now, I was losing my home to his mother. "Mom, I can hear you," my daughter Athena called from her room, and I'm pretty sure Mom can too. The floorboards creaked as Ellie climbed the stairs. "I'm only trying to help, dear. Someone needs to maintain order in this house." I opened my bedroom door before she could reach it. "I've got everything under control, Ellie. The kids are doing their homework, dinner's in the oven, and I've already called the insurance company about Taylor's policy." She stood there in her perfectly pressed blouse, lips pursed. "Darling, you look exhausted. Why don't you let me handle things? I raised Taylor on my own after all." "I appreciate the offer, but—" "Mom!" Nasir's voice rang out from downstairs. "The timer's beeping." I moved to head downstairs, but Ellie blocked my path. "I'll take care of it. You should rest." Before I could protest, she was already halfway down the stairs. I followed her to the kitchen, where my 10-year-old son was standing by the oven. "Grandma, Mom always lets me help set the table," Nasir said, reaching for the plates. "Not tonight, dear. These dishes are too expensive to risk breaking. Go wash up for dinner." I watched my son's face fall. "Ellie, those are our everyday plates. Nasir knows how to—" "Natasha," she cut me off, her voice honey-sweet but her eyes steel-cold. "I know you mean well, but children need structure, especially now. Taylor would want them raised properly." My phone buzzed, a text from my best friend Tabitha. "How's it going with the dragon lady?" I typed back quickly. "She's taken over everything. I can barely breathe." "Want me to come over? I'll bring wine." "Not tonight. She's already commented twice about my drinking problem, aka the one glass of wine I had with dinner yesterday." I looked up to find Ellie rearranging my spice rack. "These should be alphabetized," she muttered. "Really, Natasha, How did you ever find anything? Taylor never had trouble finding the spices, I said quietly. She froze for a moment, then continued her reorganizing. Well, Taylor was accommodating. Too accommodating sometimes. The front door opened, and Athena came downstairs, her backpack slung over one shoulder. Mom, can I go to Sophie's house to study? Before I could answer, Ellie stepped in. Absolutely not. It's a school night. But Mom always lets me study at Sophie's on Wednesdays. Athena protested, looking at me pleadingly. I took a deep breath. Athena's right, Ellie. Sophie's mother supervises their study sessions, and she's always home by 8. Things are different now, Ellie said firmly. The children need stability, not gallivanting around the neighborhood. I'm not gallivanting? Athena's voice cracked. I'm trying to maintain my grades like Dad would want. The kitchen fell silent. Ellie moved to hug Athena, but my daughter backed away, tears in her eyes. I hate this. I hate that Dad's gone, and I hate that everything's different. She ran upstairs, her door slamming moments later. Nasir appeared in the doorway, his young face worried. Is Athena okay? Ellie sighed dramatically. See what happens when there's no proper authority? Children need a firm hand, Natasha. Taylor understood that. I gripped the counter, my knuckles white. Taylor understood a lot of things. What's that supposed to mean? I looked at my mother-in-law, really looked at her. She'd moved into our house the day after the funeral, rearranging furniture, changing routines, criticizing every decision I made, and I'd let her, too numb with grief to fight back. But watching my children's world shrink under her rules, seeing their spirits dim day by day, something inside me was waking up. Nothing, I said finally. I'm going to check on Athena. As I climbed the stairs, I heard Ellie's voice behind me. This is exactly why I need to be here. That poor woman can't even handle a simple teenage outburst. I paused on the landing, my hand trailing along the wall where Taylor and I had hung our family photos. My fingers brushed against a small nick in the wood, a secret mark Taylor had made years ago, though he never told me why. Something about that tiny imperfection in the perfect walls of Ellie's new domain made me smile. Taylor had his secrets, his quiet acts of rebellion. Maybe it was time I found my own. Absolutely not. Ellie's voice rang through the kitchen the next morning. No child of mine ever needed a cell phone at 13, and neither does Athena. She's not your child, I said, handing Athena her lunch bag. And Taylor and I already agreed she could have one for her birthday next week. Athena stood frozen between us, her eyes darting back and forth like she was watching a tennis match. Plans change, Ellie said, adjusting her pearl necklace. In times of grief, children need fewer distractions, not more. Mom, Athena whispered. Dad promised. The hurt in her voice made my chest tight. Before I could respond, Ellie stepped forward. Your father isn't here anymore, dear. Now, go get your brother. You'll be late for school. As soon as Athena left the kitchen, I turned to Ellie. You can't keep overruling me like this. I'm doing what's best for this family. Someone has to maintain standards. She opened the fridge, grimacing. Really, Natasha, store-bought orange juice? What happened to fresh squeezed? My phone buzzed. Tabitha again. Coffee? You sound like you need rescue. Can't, I texted back. Queen Elizabeth is monitoring my caffeine intake. That's it, Tabitha replied. I'm coming over. 20 minutes later, after the kids had left for school, the doorbell rang. Tabitha burst in before I could even reach it, her red curls wild and her arms full of coffee cups. Morning, Ellie, she called out cheerfully. Hope you don't mind, but Natasha and I have some wedding planning to discuss. Ellie appeared in the doorway, frowning. Wedding planning? My sister's wedding, Tabitha explained smoothly. Natasha's helping with the arrangements. You know how good she is at organizing events. Is she? Ellie's tone dripped with doubt. Well, don't let me interrupt. I need to reorganize the linen closet anyway. Someone's been folding the towels incorrectly. As soon as Ellie disappeared upstairs, Tabitha grabbed my arm and pulled me onto the porch. Okay, spill. How bad is it? She's taken over everything, Tab. The kids' schedules, the meals, even the damn thermostat. Yesterday, she threw out all my scented candles because they were fire hazards. The ones Taylor got you for your anniversary? I nodded, fighting back tears. She says she's helping, but it feels like she's trying to erase me from my own home. So fight back. How? She's Taylor's mother. The kids need her. The kids need their mom, Tabitha said firmly. Their real mom, not Grandma Dictator. A crash from inside made us both jump. We rushed back in to find Nasir standing in the living room, a broken picture frame at his feet. I'm sorry, he said quickly. I was just trying to dust it like Grandma said. It's okay, sweetheart, I started, but Ellie was already there, tutting disapprovingly. This is what happens when children aren't properly supervised, she said, sweeping up the glass. From now on, no touching the family photos. But that's my favorite picture of Dad, Nasir protested. Then you should have been more careful with it, shouldn't you? I watched my son's lower lip tremble, and something inside me snapped. That's enough, Ellie. Nasir, go get ready for soccer practice. I'll fix the frame later. Soccer? Ellie straightened up. Oh, I canceled that. He needs to focus on his studies. You what? I stared at her in disbelief. Taylor coached that team. Nasir loves soccer. Taylor isn't here to coach anymore, is he? Her words hit like a slap. The boy needs structure, not sports. Tabitha stepped forward, her face flushed. You know what? I just remembered, Natasha, you still have that key Taylor gave you, right? The one for his study? I froze. The key. In all the chaos of the past weeks, I'd forgotten about it. What key? Ellie demanded. Nothing, I said quickly. Just something Taylor mentioned before. But I remembered now. The small brass key he'd pressed into my hand that last morning, saying he had something important to show me later. We never got that later. Well, Tabitha said brightly, I should go. Thanks for the wedding planning help, Nat. As she hugged me goodbye, she whispered, Find that key. That night, after everyone was asleep, I stood in my closet, running my fingers along the jewelry box where I'd stored the key. It was still there, small and unremarkable, but suddenly it felt like the most important object in the world. Whatever Taylor had wanted to show me was in his study, the one room Ellie hadn't dared to touch yet. Maybe, just maybe, it held the answers I needed. I clutched the key tightly, my heart pounding. Tomorrow, I decided. Tomorrow I would find out what my husband had left behind. The study door creaked as I turned the key, making me wince. It was 2 a.m., and the last thing I needed was Ellie catching me here. The room smelled like Taylor, his cologne, old books, and the leather of his chair. My phone's flashlight revealed the room exactly as he'd left it. His coffee mug still sat on the desk, a faint ring stained into the wood beneath it. I ran my fingers across his desk calendar, stopped forever on the day he died. What did you want me to find? I whispered. The beam of my flashlight caught something unusual, a corner of paper sticking out from behind the large family portrait on the wall. My hands trembled as I lifted the frame. There it was, a manila envelope with my name written in Taylor's familiar scrawl. Mom? I nearly dropped the envelope. Athena stood in the doorway, her phone providing a soft glow. Honey, you should be in bed. I heard the door. She stepped inside, closing it quietly behind her. What are you doing in Dad's study? I held up the envelope. Finding answers, I hope. She settled next to me on the leather couch, and I opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a letter and several documents. "Dear Natasha," I read aloud, my voice barely a whisper. "If you're reading this, something's happened to me. I've been having chest pains lately, and though I don't want to worry you, I need to make sure you're protected." Athena gripped my arm. I continued reading. "Mom will try to take control. She always has. She did it when I was growing up. She tried it when we got married, and she'll definitely try it now. Don't let her. You're stronger than she thinks, stronger than even you know." "Dad knew," Athena whispered. "He knew what Grandma would do." I shuffled through the other papers, legal documents, bank statements, and photographs. Old ones, showing a younger Ellie with Taylor as a teenager. In every photo, she was directing, positioning, controlling. "There's more," I said, turning back to the letter. "I've set everything up in your name, the house, the accounts, everything. Mom has no legal right to make decisions for our family. I know she'll claim it's for the best, that she's helping, but don't believe it. She nearly destroyed my first marriage with her interference. I won't let her do the same to you and the kids." "Dad was married before?" Athena's eyes widened. "Briefly in college," I said, remembering. "He never talked about it much." The letter continued. "I've included proof of everything. Her manipulation, her lies, even the way she drove Sarah away. Use it if you have to. The kids need their mother, their real mother, not someone trying to remake them in her image." "You need to show this to Grandma," Athena said firmly. I shook my head. "It's not that simple." "Why not? Dad wanted you to stand up to her. He said you're stronger than she thinks." A floorboard creaked in the hallway. We both froze. "Natasha," Ellie's voice called out. "Is someone in Taylor's study?" I quickly shoved the envelope under a couch cushion. "Just me, Ellie. Couldn't sleep." The door opened. Ellie stood there in her silk robe, frowning. "This room should be left as it is, as a memorial. It's disrespectful to—" "To what?" I interrupted, standing up. "To remember my husband, to seek comfort in the space where he spent so much time." "Mom," Athena added, "Dad wouldn't want his study to be a shrine. He'd want us to use it to remember him living, not—" "Go to bed, Athena," Ellie snapped. "This doesn't concern you." "Actually," I said, my voice stronger than I'd felt in weeks, "it concerns all of us. This is our home, our family." "I am the matriarch of this family," Ellie declared. Taylor expected me to lead this family," I cut in, "and it's time I started doing exactly that." Ellie's face paled. "What are you talking about?" "Go to bed, honey," I told Athena, who squeezed my hand before leaving. Once she was gone, I faced my mother-in-law. "Things are going to change, Ellie, starting tomorrow." "Is that a threat?" "No," I said calmly. "It's a promise. To my husband, to my children, and to myself." She stared at me for a long moment before turning away. "We'll discuss this in the morning, when you're thinking more clearly." After she left, I retrieved the envelope and held it close. Taylor had known what would happen, known what I would need. He'd prepared everything, given me all the tools. Now I just had to be brave enough to use them. I pulled out my phone and texted Tabitha. "Found the key to everything. Meeting tomorrow?" Her response was immediate. "Finally, my place, 10 a.m. Time to take back your life, girl." Looking around Taylor's study one last time, I smiled. The war for our family was about to begin. "She did what?" Tabitha nearly spilled her coffee as I showed her the document spread across her kitchen table. "Apparently, Ellie drove Taylor's first wife away by convincing everyone the poor woman was unstable." I pointed to an old letter. "Sarah wrote this to Taylor years later, explaining everything." And Taylor kept it all this time? Tabitha shook her head in disbelief. He knew his mother better than anyone. I pulled out my phone, showing her a text from Reuben, Taylor's childhood friend. I reached out to Reuben this morning. He's willing to meet with us. The doorbell rang and Reuben entered, his lawyer's briefcase in hand. "Ladies," he said, settling into a chair. "I've been waiting for this conversation for weeks." "You knew about all this?" I asked. "I watched Ellie destroy Taylor's first marriage. When he met you, he was determined not to let history repeat itself." Reuben pulled out some papers. "These are copies of everything Taylor set up legally. The house, accounts, even the kids' trust funds. They're all in your name, Natasha." "So Ellie has no actual power here?" Tabitha asked. "None," Reuben smiled. "She's a guest in your home, nothing more." My phone buzzed. Nasir's school. "Hello? Mrs. Richardson, this is Principal Morris. Your mother-in-law just called to pull Nasir out of soccer permanently. We needed to confirm this with you." I gripped the phone tighter. "She did what?" "She said it was a family decision." It absolutely was not. Nasir stays on the team. In fact, I'm coming to sign him up for the summer program too. After hanging up, I turned to my friends. "She's already making moves. I need to start pushing back." "Start small," Reuben advised. "Reclaim your space bit by bit." That afternoon, I drove to the store and bought new scented candles, the same ones Taylor always got me. When I got home, Ellie was reorganizing the kitchen again. "What are those?" she demanded, eyeing the shopping bag. "Candles, for my house." I set them out on the counter deliberately. The kids love the vanilla scent. Reminds them of their dad. "I told you those are fire hazards." "In my house," I interrupted, "we use candles, just like we did when Taylor was alive." Her face reddened. "I'm only trying to protect this family." "By canceling Nasir's soccer, the sport his father coached?" She froze. "How did you—" "I'm his mother, Ellie. The school checks with me, not you." The front door opened, and Athena walked in with Nasir. "Mom," Nasir ran to me. "Is it true? Can I still play soccer?" "Of course, baby." I hugged him tight. "In fact, you're joining the summer league too." "But Grandma said—" "Grandma made a mistake," I said firmly, meeting Ellie's eyes. "She forgot to check with me first." "This is ridiculous," Ellie sputtered. "Taylor would never—" "Actually," I pulled out my phone, showing her a video I'd found in Taylor's study, him coaching Nasir's team, both of them laughing. "This is exactly what Taylor would want." Ellie stormed upstairs, and I heard her door slam. Athena grinned. "Mom, that was awesome." My phone buzzed with a text from Tabitha. "How's Operation Take Back going?" "Just won the first battle," I replied. "Soccer stays, candles are back." Queen Elizabeth is not amused. Later that night, while the kids did homework, I found a crumpled paper in the recycling bin, a draft of Taylor's letter that Ellie must have discovered while snooping. My heart raced as I smoothed it out. How much had she read? The sound of her heels on the stairs answered my question. Her face was composed, but her eyes were cold. "I always wondered why Taylor changed his will that last year," she said. "Now I know. He turned my own son against me." "No, Ellie, you did that yourself. I made him successful, gave him structure, guidance. You controlled him, and now you're trying to control his children." She stepped closer. "You have no idea what it takes to raise children properly. You're too soft, too permissive, just like Sarah was." "The difference is," I stood my ground, "I'm not going anywhere. This is my home, my family, and my rules. We'll see about that." She turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Natasha, I've invited some old family friends over for dinner tomorrow. Do try to have the house presentable." As her footsteps faded, I texted Reuben. "She found a draft of the letter. Time to call in reinforcements?" His response was immediate. On it. Tell Tabitha to contact Dexter from the community board. Time to show Ellie what real family support looks like. I smiled, lighting one of my new candles. The vanilla scent filled the air, and for the first time in weeks, I felt truly at home. Ellie invited how many people? Tabitha paced my kitchen the next morning, her heels clicking against the tile. 12, I said, checking my phone. All her old country club friends. She's trying to embarrass me in front of the community. Well, she's in for a surprise. Tabitha grinned. Dexter's already called everyone who matters. Trust me, this dinner party won't go how she expects. The doorbell rang. Dexter, the community board president, stood there with his wife Maria. Natasha, he said warmly, we came early to help. The dinner's not until 6, I started, but Maria was already rolling up her sleeves. Honey, we're not here for Ellie's dinner. We're here for yours. Over the next few hours, people streamed in through the back door. Neighbors, parents from the kids' school, Taylor's old soccer team families. Each brought food, supplies, and most importantly, support. Mom? Nasir appeared in the kitchen. Why is everyone here? Because they care about us, I said, hugging him. Where's your grandmother? Still upstairs, getting ready. She said we need to look perfect for her friends. The doorbell rang again. This time it was Reuben carrying a thick folder. Everything's set, he whispered. Just say the word. At exactly 6, Ellie descended the stairs in her finest dress, stopping short at the sight of dozens of people filling our home. What is this? She demanded. I specifically invited your friends? I gestured to the front door, where her country club associates were arriving. They're welcome too, the more the merrier. This is completely inappropriate. Actually, Dexter stepped forward. This is exactly appropriate. This community supports Natasha and these children. We always have. And who are you two? He's the community board president, Maria cut in. The same board that Taylor worked with to establish the youth soccer program you tried to shut down. Ellie's face reddened. I was only thinking of what's best for who? I asked quietly. For Nasir, who lost both his father and his favorite sport? For Athena, who can't even study with her friends anymore? You don't understand. No, you don't understand. I raised my voice slightly, making sure everyone could hear. This is our home. These are our neighbors, our friends, our support system. Taylor knew that. It's why he chose this community. Taylor chose this community because I suggested it, Ellie snapped. Actually, Reuben stepped forward. Taylor chose it because it was far enough from you to give his family space to breathe. A murmur went through the crowd. Ellie's country club friends shifted uncomfortably. Is that true, Ellie? One of them asked. Did your son really move here to get away from you? Of course not. I only ever wanted what was best. Like you did with Sarah? The words slipped out before I could stop them. Taylor's first wife? The room went silent. Ellie's face turned pale. That was different, she whispered. She wasn't right for him. No, I said firmly. You decided she wasn't right for him. Just like you've decided I'm not right for these kids. I never. Mom? Athena appeared at my side. I found this in the study. She held up a photo album. It's full of pictures of Dad with Sarah. They looked happy. Until suddenly, she's not in any more pictures. Ellie reached for the album, but Athena pulled back. There's writing on the back of some photos, my daughter continued. Sarah wrote about how much she loved Dad, but how she couldn't handle the constant criticism, the manipulation, the control. Enough! Ellie's voice cracked. This is a private family matter. You're right, I agreed. So let's handle it like family. These people? I gestured to the crowd. They're our family too. They've been here for us since Taylor died. Where were your country club friends? One by one, Ellie's invited guests made their excuses and left, leaving her standing alone in a sea of our supporters. "This isn't over," she said, but her voice lacked its usual authority. "Actually," Reuben stepped forward again, "it is. Natasha has legal documentation of everything, the house, the accounts, even Taylor's explicit wishes for his family's future. Would you like me to share those details with everyone?" Ellie looked around the room, finally seeing what she was up against. Not just me, but an entire community ready to stand with us. "I think," she said stiffly, "I need to lie down." As she climbed the stairs, Tabitha squeezed my hand. "Round one goes to us." "Round one?" Maria laughed. "Honey, this was a knockout." But watching Ellie's defeated retreat, I knew better. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. She'd regroup, replan, and come back fighting. But this time, I'd be ready. The morning after the dinner party, Ellie was nowhere to be found. Instead, a formal invitation sat on the kitchen counter. "Family meeting, 2 p.m., Taylor's old law firm." "It's a power play," Reuben said when I called him. "She's trying to intimidate you with the setting." Should I be worried? Bring the letter and documents, and Natasha, bring the kids too. It's time they understood everything. At 1:55 p.m., we walked into the law firm's conference room. Ellie sat at the head of the table, flanked by 2 lawyers and her friend Serenity from the country club. "The children shouldn't be here," Ellie said immediately. "They're exactly where they need to be," I replied, taking the seat opposite her. Reuben sat beside me, placing his briefcase on the table. "I've called this meeting," Ellie began, "because recent events have made it clear that this family is in crisis. As the matriarch—" "You're not the matriarch," Athena interrupted. "Mom is." Ellie's lawyer cleared his throat. "We have concerns about the children's welfare. Mrs. Richardson has documented several instances of questionable parenting decisions." "Like what?" I demanded. Serenity pulled out a notebook. "Allowing unsupervised study sessions, dangerous sports activities, inappropriate social media access. You mean letting me study with Sophie?" Athena's voice shook with anger. "Or letting Nasir play the sport Dad loved? Your father would want." "Don't." Nasir spoke up for the first time. "Don't tell us what Dad would want. You didn't even come to his games." Ellie's face hardened. "I'm trying to protect you from—" "From what?" I pulled out Taylor's letter. "From turning out like their father? The son you tried to control so much he moved across the city to escape you? That letter is a forgery," Ellie snapped. "Really?" Reuben opened his briefcase. "I have the original here, with Taylor's notarized signature, along with some interesting documents about Sarah." The lawyers exchanged glances. Serenity shifted uncomfortably. "Who's Sarah?" Nasir asked. "Your father's first wife," I said gently. "The one your grandmother drove away with false accusations and manipulation." "That's slander." Ellie stood up. "I won't sit here and—" "Sit down, Mom." A new voice spoke from the doorway. Sarah herself stood there, looking elegant in a business suit. "They deserve to know the truth." Ellie fell back into her chair. "How dare you come here?" "I invited her," Reuben said. "As Taylor's first wife, she has relevant testimony about your pattern of behavior." Sarah walked to the table. "I loved Taylor. We were happy until his mother started spreading rumors about my mental health, my faithfulness, even my ability to have children." "You were wrong for him," Ellie insisted. "No," Sarah's voice was firm. "I was just wrong for you. I wasn't controllable enough, moldable enough. So you destroyed me, but I won't let you destroy this family too." "Is that why Dad kept all those pictures?" Athena asked Sarah. "To remember what Grandma did?" Sarah nodded. "Taylor never forgave himself for not standing up to her then. That's why he prepared everything for your mom, to make sure history wouldn't repeat itself." Ellie's lawyers were whispering urgently. Finally, one spoke up. "Mrs. Richardson, given this new evidence, we recommend—" "Fire them," Ellie cut in. All of them. This meeting is over. No, I stood up. This meeting is exactly what we needed. The kids needed to see the truth. They needed to understand why their father set things up the way he did. I'm their grandmother. I have rights. You have privileges, Reuben corrected. Privileges that can be revoked. Are you threatening me? No, I said quietly. I'm giving you a choice. Either accept that this is my family to lead or leave. Taylor made his wishes clear. I won't let you do to my children what you did to him. The room fell silent. Nasir reached for my hand under the table. I choose my family, he said firmly. Me too, Athena added. Ellie looked around the room, at her dismissed lawyers, at Sarah's steady gaze, at her grandchildren's determined faces. For the first time, I saw something new in her expression. Fear. You can't just cut me out, she whispered. No one's cutting you out, I said, but things will be different now. My house, my rules, my family. You can be part of that, but only on those terms. She stood slowly, gathering her purse. I need time to think. As she walked out, Sarah touched my arm. You did what I couldn't. You stood up to her. We all did, I said, hugging my children close. Together. Watching Ellie's retreating figure through the glass walls, I felt no triumph, only relief. The truth was finally out, and with it, the power she'd held over us for so long. Now we just had to see what she'd do next. 3 days passed without a word from Ellie. Her bedroom door remained closed, meals untouched outside it. The silence felt like the calm before a storm. She's planning something, Tabitha warned over coffee. Women like Ellie don't just give up. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Dexter. Heads up, Ellie's at the community center with her country club friends. They're calling an emergency board meeting. Now? I grabbed my keys. Watch the kids, Tab. Go, show her what you're made of. I arrived at the community center to find the parking lot full. Inside, Ellie stood at the podium, perfectly composed in her designer suit. And as a concerned grandmother, I must bring attention to the declining standards in our community. Single mothers without proper support systems. You mean widows whose mother-in-laws try to steal their children? I called out, walking down the aisle. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Ellie's fingers tightened on the podium. Natasha, this is a closed meeting. About my family? I don't think so. I turned to face the crowd. You all knew Taylor. He coached your kids, helped with community projects, believed in making this place better for everyone. Exactly, Ellie jumped in. And now his legacy is right here. I pulled out my phone, playing a video I'd found in his study. Taylor's face filled the screen, recorded just weeks before his death. Hey, beautiful. His voice filled the room. If you're watching this, I guess those chest pains meant something after all. I need you to know something. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. You gave me the strength to break free from Mom's control, to be my own person. Ellie tried to speak, but Dexter shushed her. The video continued. I've watched you raise our kids with love, not rules, with guidance, not control. You're everything I wished my mother could have been. Tears streamed down my face as Taylor's image smiled. Don't let her do to our family what she did to mine. The house, the accounts, everything's yours, but more importantly, the kids are yours to raise. You're their mother, and you're amazing at it. The video ended. Silence filled the room. Well, Serenity stood up. I think we've heard enough. No, a new voice called out. Sarah walked in, carrying a stack of papers. You haven't heard everything yet. This is ridiculous, Ellie sputtered. She has no right. I have every right. Sarah passed out documents to the board members. These are the complaints filed against Ellie 20 years ago. Harassment, defamation, even stalking. The same patterns she's showing now. Those charges were dropped, Ellie protested. Because Taylor begged me to, Sarah replied. He didn't want to believe his mother could be so cruel, but he learned. That's why he protected his new family from you. Dexter stood up. I move to dismiss this emergency meeting. All in favor? Hands shot up across the room. Ellie's supporters shrank in their seats. Furthermore, Dexter continued, I move to formally recognize Natasha as the head of the Richardson family and their rightful representative on all community matters. More hands raised. Ellie's face turned red. You can't do this, she hissed. I am still a guest in my house, I finished, and not a very good one. The crowd began to disperse. Ellie's friends hurried past her without meeting her eyes. Finally, only Ellie, Sarah, and I remained. You've ruined everything, Ellie whispered. No, Sarah said gently. You did that yourself. 20 years ago with me and now with Natasha. The difference is she's stronger than I was. What happens now? Ellie asked, her voice small. That depends on you. I stepped closer. You can either accept that things have changed and try to be the grandmother our children deserve, or you can leave. But the controlling, the manipulation, it stops now. They're my family too. Then prove it, not by ruling them, but by loving them. Can you do that? She looked between us, the woman she'd driven away and the woman who'd stood her ground. I don't know how, she admitted finally. Then maybe it's time to learn, Sarah suggested, before you lose another family. My phone buzzed, a text from Athena. Is Grandma coming home? I showed Ellie the message. Well, are you ready to try things our way? She wiped her eyes, smearing expensive mascara. I need time. Take it, I said. But remember, when you come back, it's to our rules, our family, our way. As she walked out, Sarah squeezed my hand. You did it. You really did it. We did it, I corrected. All of us together. Looking around the empty community center where Taylor had spent so many happy hours, I felt his presence stronger than ever. He'd given me the tools, but I'd found the strength. Now it was time to go home and tell our children that the war was finally over. Mom, Grandma's here. Nasir's voice carried from the front door. I looked up from Taylor's desk, now my desk, in the study to see Ellie standing in the doorway, a small suitcase at her feet. The 30 days are up, she said quietly. I'd like to come home, if the offer still stands. I gestured to the chair across from me. We should talk first. She sat down, her usual perfect posture slightly wilted. I've been seeing a therapist, Dr. Matthews. She's helping me understand patterns I never noticed before. Good, that was our condition. I know. She twisted her wedding ring. She showed me how I've been recreating my own mother's controlling behavior. I didn't want to believe it, but Grandma, Athena appeared behind her. You're just in time. Mom's letting me redecorate my room. Want to help pick colors? Ellie's hand twitched, and I could see her fighting the urge to take control. Instead, she asked, What colors are you considering? Black and purple. I see. Ellie caught my eye, took a deep breath. It's your room, dear. What matters is that you love it. Athena's jaw dropped. Mom, what did you do with the real Grandma? We all laughed, breaking the tension. Why don't you show her your design ideas? I suggested. As they left, I heard Ellie asking questions instead of giving orders. A small change, but significant. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. How's it going? She's trying, I replied. Really trying. The doorbell rang. Tabitha burst in with takeout bags. Family dinner. I brought everyone's favorites, even your weird seaweed snacks, Ellie. You remembered? Ellie looked touched. Course I did. Your family. Difficult, sometimes impossible family, but still family. We gathered around the dinner table. No formal dining room, no strict seating arrangement. Nasir had soccer dirt on his knees. Athena's hair was wild from dance practice, and for once, Ellie didn't comment on either. Before we eat, she said suddenly, I have something for everyone. She pulled out a stack of envelopes. Letters. Dr. Matthews suggested I write down things I should have said long ago. She handed them out, one to each of us, plus one for Sarah and one addressed to Taylor. That last one she placed in the center of the table. You don't have to read them now, she added quickly, or ever if you don't want to, but I needed to write them. Nasir opened his immediately. His eyes widened. Grandma, you're coming to my soccer games? If you want me to. She smiled tentatively. Your father loved coaching you. I should have seen that. Athena read hers next, tears filling her eyes. She got up and hugged Ellie, their first real hug since Taylor died. I opened mine last. Natasha, I owe you the biggest apology. You didn't just lose your husband. You lost your partner, your children's father, your future as you planned it. Instead of helping, I tried to take what little you had left. I was wrong. Taylor chose well when he chose you. You're stronger than I ever gave you credit for. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave you every reason to. The guest room is made up, I said, closing the letter. Same rules as before, respect boundaries, ask, don't tell, and therapy continues. Agreed. Ellie reached for the letter to Taylor. This one, I'd like to put it in his study, where it belongs. Together, we walked to the study. Photos lined the walls, old ones of Taylor and Sarah, newer ones of our family, recent ones of soccer games and dance recitals. A timeline of love, loss, and healing. He would be proud, Ellie said softly, of all of us. Even you? Especially me, I hope. It's not easy admitting you've been wrong for so long. From downstairs, Tabitha called. Food's getting cold, and Nasir's eyeing the last spring roll. Save me one, I called back. To Ellie, I added, welcome home, for real this time. As we headed downstairs, I caught a glimpse of our reflection in the window. Mother and daughter-in-law, both changed by loss, both healing through love. Not perfect, but family. Taylor's letter sat on his desk, next to the vanilla candle I'd lit earlier. Its flame flickered, casting dancing shadows that seemed to whisper, this is what I wanted all along. Not perfect harmony, but real love. Not strict control, but genuine connection. Mom, Athena called. Nasir's telling Grandma about his goal last week, and he's totally exaggerating. Am not, Nasir protested. Are too. Ellie caught my eye and smiled. A real smile, not her usual practiced one. Shall we go referee? No, I said, returning her smile. Let's just go listen. Sometimes that's all family needs to do. Together, we rejoined our beautifully imperfect family, leaving Taylor's study behind but carrying his love with us, always.
The last time I saw my sister smile was at our father's funeral. Not a grief-stricken smile or even a polite one. It was the kind of smile that made my stomach turn, the kind that spoke of victory rather than loss. I watched her from across the cemetery, her designer black dress catching the autumn wind as she clutched the will in her manicured hands. My name is Vada, and that day marked the beginning of the end of my relationship with my twin sister, Tori. He left everything to her. My mother whispered beside me, her voice trembling. Everything except the old beach house. Linda, Mom, grabbed my hand, squeezing it so tight I could feel her wedding ring pressing into my skin. I watched Tori strut across the cemetery like it was a runway, her heels sinking slightly into the damp grass with each step. She stopped in front of us, that smile still playing on her lips. Well, Looks like Daddy's favorite finally got her due, she said, waving the document in front of Mom's face. Guess all those years of backing him up during your fights paid off. Tori, stop it, I snapped. Dad's barely in the ground. She turned to me, tilting her head. We might have been identical twins, but in that moment, I couldn't recognize a single familiar feature in her face. Oh, sister dear, always playing the moral compass. How's that working out for you? Still living in that cramped apartment, driving that secondhand car? Mom stepped forward. Tori, please, we're family. Family? Tori's laugh cut through the cemetery like breaking glass. Family doesn't mean much when there's a fortune at stake, does it? You tried to turn Dad against me for years, but look who won in the end. I felt my blood boiling. That's not what happened, and you know it. Mom supported Dad through everything. The drinking, the gambling, the affairs. She stayed loyal even when he didn't deserve it. Loyal? Tori scoffed. Is that what we're calling it now? Well, you can keep your loyalty. I'll take the estate, the company, and every penny he left me. She turned to Mom, her voice dripping with contempt. Don't worry. I'll make sure the beach house taxes are paid up. Wouldn't want you losing your little consolation prize. Tori. Mom's voice was soft, reaching out to touch her arm. Please don't do this. Don't let money destroy what we have. Tori jerked away like Mom's touch burned her. What we have? We have nothing. And Vada? She turned to me, her eyes cold. You'll regret choosing her side. Mark my words. In a few years, when I'm running Dad's company and you're still playing nurse at that shabby clinic, you'll realize what a mistake you made today. I stepped between her and Mom. The only mistake here is thinking money matters more than family. We'll see about that. Tori straightened her designer sunglasses, checking her reflection in them. I'd say see you around, but I won't. I'm done with both of you. The lawyers will handle everything from here. She turned on her heel, that smile still firmly in place, and walked away. I watched her slide into her new Mercedes, Dad's last gift to her before he died, and drive off without a backward glance. Mom collapsed into me, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. I held her tight, feeling the weight of everything we'd lost pressing down on us. Not just Dad, but Tori too. My twin, my other half, now as good as dead to us. It's okay, Mom, I whispered, though nothing about this was okay. We still have each other. We'll figure it out. Later that night, as I helped Mom sort through old photos in the beach house, our new home, I came across a picture of Tori and me on our 16th birthday. We were wearing matching outfits, arms around each other, grinning at the camera without a care in the world. I touched Tori's face in the photo, wondering how we'd ended up here. My phone buzzed with a text. It was from Tori. Hope you enjoy playing martyr with Mom. Just remember, you chose this. I deleted the message without responding and looked around the small beach house. It needed work. The roof leaked, the pipes groaned, and the paint was peeling. But it was ours. Mom was already in the kitchen, making tea in chipped mugs, humming softly to herself like she always did when she was trying to be brave. You know what, Mom? I called out, setting the photo aside. I think we got the better deal. She appeared in the doorway holding 2 steaming mugs. How do you figure that? I took one of the mugs, breathing in the familiar scent of chamomile. Because we still know what matters, and it's not what's in Dad's will. 5 years can change everything and nothing at all. The beach house Mom and I had inherited now gleamed with fresh paint and new windows, but every time I walked through the door, I still expected to see Tori lounging on the porch like she used to when we were kids. Look what came in the mail today, Mom said, waving a glossy magazine as I arrived for our weekly dinner. She'd aged gracefully these past years, her silver hair catching the sunset streaming through the windows. I took the magazine, and my breath caught. There was Tori on the cover of Business Success, looking polished and powerful in a red blazer. The headline read, Rising Star, How the CEO Turned a Family Business into a Fortune 500 Company. Well, she certainly got what she wanted, I said, tossing the magazine onto the coffee table. Mom touched my arm. Sadie called earlier. She said she saw Tori at that new restaurant downtown last week. Apparently, she asked about you. Did she now? I pulled plates from the cabinet, trying to ignore the familiar ache in my chest. Probably just wanted to make sure I'm still struggling without Dad's money. Actually, Mom hesitated. Sadie said she seemed different. Maybe the doorbell interrupted her. I opened it to find Lyle, my boyfriend of 2 years, holding a bottle of wine and wearing that crooked smile I loved so much. "Sorry I'm late," he said, kissing my cheek. "The hospital was crazy today." He handed the wine to Mom. "Linda, you look lovely as always." We settled around the dinner table, the conversation flowing easily as it always did with Lyle. He'd been my rock through everything, never judging my choice to stand by Mom, never questioning why I stayed at the community clinic instead of chasing bigger opportunities. "Oh, before I forget," Mom said, reaching for her phone, "your cousin Rachel sent me this link. You might want to see it." She passed me her phone, and I nearly choked on my wine. It was an invitation to a charity gala, and there at the top was Tori's name as the host. The event was next week, promising an evening of philanthropy and networking at the city's most exclusive hotel. "She sent invitations to the whole family," Mom explained softly. "Even me." Lyle squeezed my hand under the table. "Are you thinking of going?" I stared at the screen, at the RSVP button that seemed to pulse like a warning. "I don't know. It feels like a trap." "Or maybe," Mom ventured, "it's an olive branch?" Later that night, as Lyle and I walked along the beach, the waves crashing against the shore matched my turbulent thoughts. "You know," he said, "sometimes the hardest thing isn't standing up for what's right. It's maintaining that stance when the world tries to make you doubt yourself." I kicked at the sand. "I don't doubt myself. I doubt her." "You didn't see her that day at the funeral, Lyle? The way she looked at Mom." My phone buzzed. A text from Sadie. "Girl, you need to see this." Attached was a link to a business article about Tori's company. The headline made my heart skip. "Bailey Enterprises faces securities investigation." "What is it?" Lyle asked, noting my expression. "Karma, maybe?" I showed him the article. "Looks like all that success might not be as solid as it appears." "Are you going to the gala?" I looked out at the ocean, remembering how Tori and I used to swim here every summer, how we'd promised to always have each other's backs. "Yes," I finally said, "but not for her. I want to see for myself what she's built with everything she took from us." Back inside, Mom was still up, reading that magazine with Tori's face on it. She looked up as I entered. "I got an email from Emma, Tori's business partner. She says things aren't what they seem at the company." "Mom, don't get your hopes up. Tori made her choice." She set the magazine down, her eyes tired but determined. "People can change, Vada. Even Tori." I picked up my purse, ready to head home. Maybe, but change doesn't erase consequences. As I drove home that night, my phone lit up with another text. This time from an unknown number. "Looking forward to seeing you at the gala, sis. Hope you're ready to see what real success looks like. T." I pulled into my driveway, looking at my modest house with its small garden and wind chimes Lyle had hung last spring. Success, I thought, comes in many forms, and some of them can't be measured in dollars or magazine covers. I typed back a simple response. "I'll be there." The Grand Plaza Hotel lobby sparkled with wealth and pretense. I smoothed down my simple black dress, the nicest thing I owned, and felt Lyle's reassuring presence beside me. "Ready?" he whispered, offering his arm. "As I'll ever be." The ballroom was a scene from another world. Crystal chandeliers, ice sculptures, and people wearing jewelry that could probably fund my clinic for a year. And there, holding court in the center of it all, was Tori. She spotted me immediately. Twin radar, I suppose. For a moment, something flickered across her face, something that reminded me of the sister I used to know. Then her professional mask slipped back into place. "Vada," she called out, gliding toward us. "You actually came." Her eyes swept over my dress, my shoes, Lyle. "And you brought..." A friend? My partner, Lyle, I said firmly. He's a doctor at Memorial. How quaint. Tori's smile didn't reach her eyes. Well, enjoy the party. Open bar, though maybe stick to the domestic wines. She turned to leave, but I caught her arm. That's it? 5 years and that's all you have to say? She jerked away. What do you want me to say? How's Mom? Still living in that shabby beach house? The house is beautiful now, not that you'd know. A woman in a sharp business suit approached us, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Tori, the investors are asking for you. She turned to me, recognition dawning. You must be the twin sister. I'm Emma, Tori's business partner. Nice to meet you, I said, noticing how Tori tensed at Emma's arrival. The famous Vada. Emma smiled, but something in her expression seemed off. Tori never mentioned you were identical. There's a lot Tori doesn't mention, I replied. Emma's smile tightened. Well, we should… Actually, Tori interrupted. I need a moment with my sister. Emma, handle the investors. Emma's eyes narrowed slightly before she nodded and walked away. Tori grabbed my elbow, steering me toward a quiet corner. Look, she hissed. I invited you here as a courtesy. Don't make this complicated. Complicated? I laughed. Like disowning your family for money? That kind of complicated? You don't understand. I built something here. Something bigger than beach houses and family dinners. And how's that working out? I asked. I saw the article about the securities investigation. Tori's face paled slightly before she caught herself. Tabloid nonsense. We're doing fine. Are you? Because Emma doesn't seem to think so. What did she tell you? Tori's voice sharpened. Nothing, but your reaction just did. Lyle appeared with 2 glasses of champagne, offering me one. Everything okay here? Perfect, Tori said, her fake smile back in place. I was just telling my sister about our latest acquisition. $50 million in revenue last quarter. Impressive, Lyle said coolly. Though I've always found it interesting how people flaunt numbers when they're trying to hide something. Tori's smile froze. Excuse me? Before she could respond, Emma's voice cut through the crowd. Tori, the board members are waiting. Duty calls, Tori said, but I caught the slight tremor in her hand as she smoothed her dress. Enjoy the party. It's probably the only one like it you'll ever attend. As she walked away, I overheard Emma whisper urgently, We need to talk about the audit. Things aren't looking good. Lyle squeezed my hand. You okay? Did you see it? I asked. She's scared. The mighty dewfall, he murmured. Want to stay? I watched Tori work the room, her laughter a pitch too high, her gestures a bit too sharp. Yes, I want to see how this plays out. Throughout the evening, I observed from a distance. Tori kept glancing at her phone, her composure cracking slightly each time. Emma moved through the crowd like a shark, having intense whispered conversations with various business-looking types. Near midnight, I headed to the bathroom and found Emma touching up her makeup. Your sister's quite the piece of work, she said, not looking at me. You don't know the half of it. Emma capped her lipstick. Actually, I do, and soon everyone else will too. She turned to face me. Word of advice? Distance yourself now. What's coming isn't pretty. She left me standing there, her words hanging in the air like smoke. When I returned to the ballroom, Tori was giving a speech about success and family legacy. Our eyes met across the room, and for a second, I saw real fear in them. I took Lyle's arm. Let's go home. You sure? Yeah. I've seen everything I needed to see. As we left, my phone buzzed with a text from Emma. We should talk. There's something you need to know about your sister's company. The coffee shop was quiet when Emma walked in, her designer suit out of place among the morning crowd of college students and remote workers. She slid into the booth across from me, declining my offer of coffee. I'll make this quick, she said, pulling out a tablet. Your sister's been cooking the books for months. The company's bleeding money, but she's been hiding it with creative accounting and fake contracts. I stared at the spreadsheets she showed me, numbers dancing across the screen. Why are you showing me this? Because in 3 days, I'm taking this to the board. Emma's perfectly manicured nails tapped the screen. And then to the SEC. You're betraying her? She betrayed herself, and everyone else. Emma leaned forward. Did you know she used your father's pension fund as collateral for a failed venture? 300 employees could lose everything. My coffee turned bitter in my mouth. That pension fund was supposed to support the long-time employees into retirement. Exactly. Your father built this company on loyalty. Tori's destroying it with greed. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Have you seen the news? Tori's on every business channel. Emma smiled grimly. Ah, right on schedule. The first rumors are hitting the press. I pulled up a news site. The headlines screamed about potential fraud at Bailey Enterprises, with Tori's photo prominently displayed. The company's stock was already dropping. Why tell me all this? I asked. Because despite everything, you're still her sister, and she might listen to you. Emma stood up. She has 48 hours to resign voluntarily before I go to the board. After that, it gets ugly. After Emma left, I sat there watching the news unfold on my phone. Sadie called twice, but I let it go to voicemail. Finally, I called Lyle. I saw the news, he said before I could speak. Are you okay? I need to talk to her. Vada. I know, but... No, listen, he interrupted. Your sister's office building is surrounded by reporters. It's all over the local news. I grabbed my keys. Then I know where she'll go. The beach house looked exactly as it had the day before, but it felt different now. Mom opened the door before I could knock. She's here, Mom said softly. In your old room. I found Tori sitting on my childhood bed, staring at her phone. She looked smaller somehow, her power suit wrinkled, her makeup smudged. Come to gloat? She asked without looking up. Emma showed me the books. That got her attention. She looked up, mascara streaked under her eyes. Of course she did. Guess the knife in my back needed a twist. The pension fund, Tori? Really? I was going to fix it. She stood up, pacing. 1 good quarter. That's all I needed. The Asian deal was supposed to save everything. By gambling with people's retirements, Dad's employees trusted you. Dad's employees? Tori laughed hysterically. Dad was a drunk who got lucky in business. I built this company into something real. And now you've destroyed it. Her phone buzzed again. She glanced at it and went pale. No. What? Emma's called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. Tori sank back onto the bed. It's over. Everything I built, gone. I sat beside her, close enough to smell her expensive perfume. You did this to yourself. Like you did so much better, she snapped. Still working at that tiny clinic, living in that small house? At least I can sleep at night. Tori's phone buzzed again. A text from Emma. Resign now, or tomorrow I show them everything. She's bluffing, Tori whispered, but her voice shook. Is she? Tori stood suddenly, grabbing her purse. I need to go. I can still fix this. Tori, wait. But she was already running down the stairs. I heard Mom call out to her, heard the front door slam, heard tires screech on gravel. Mom appeared in the doorway. What happened? She's going to make it worse, I said, pulling out my phone to call Lyle. Should we try to stop her? I looked at the empty doorway where my sister had disappeared. No. Sometimes people need to hit bottom before they can see the truth. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Your sister just called, threatening to expose my past indiscretions if I go to the board. Watch the news tomorrow. This won't end well for her. I looked out the window at the ocean, remembering how Tori and I used to believe we were unsinkable. Now I wondered if anyone would be able to save her from drowning in the mess she'd created. Mom, I said, I think tomorrow's going to be a very bad day. The news broke at 9 a.m. sharp. I watched from the clinic's break room as Tori's face filled every screen, The crawling headlines telling the story. CEO steps down amid fraud allegations. Bailey Enterprises stock plummets. Federal investigation launched. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since dawn. Sadie, Lyle, cousins I hadn't heard from in years. Everyone wanted to know if I'd seen the news. But one message stood out from the rest. I need you. Please. T. I found her at Dad's grave, of all places. She sat on the damp grass, her designer suit ruined, clutching a half-empty bottle of scotch. Dad's favorite brand. Fitting, isn't it? She slurred as I approached. Daddy's golden child, drinking herself stupid at his grave. He'd be so proud. Give me the bottle, Tori. She hugged it closer. Why? Afraid I'll turn out like him? Too late for that. She took another swig. Emma played me. All this time, she was gathering evidence, building her case. She gave you a chance to step down quietly. And let her take my company? Never. Tori laughed bitterly. Well, guess what? She got it anyway, along with every other vulture on the board. I sat down beside her, ignoring the morning dew soaking through my scrubs. What happens now? Now? She gestured wildly with the bottle. Now I get to watch everything I built burn to the ground. The SEC is investigating. The pension fund is gone. My accounts are frozen. Her voice cracked. I have nothing. You have family. Family? She turned to me, mascara streaking down her cheeks. I threw that away, remember? For this. For nothing. A jogger passed by, doing a double take at the sight of us. Tomorrow's tabloid headline, no doubt. Disgraced CEO drunk at father's grave. Come on, I said, standing up. You can't stay here. Where am I supposed to go? The press is camped outside my apartment. My so-called friends won't take my calls. Even my assistant quit. You're coming home. She looked up at me, squinting against the morning sun. Home? The beach house. Mom's already made up your old room. Mom hates me. Mom loves you, despite everything. I held out my hand. Come on, sis. Let me help. She stared at my hand for a long moment before taking it, stumbling as she stood. I caught her, and for a second she leaned into me like we were kids again, seeking comfort after a nightmare. I really screwed up, didn't I? She whispered. Yeah, you did. The drive to the beach house was silent, except for the radio news still dissecting Tori's downfall. I switched it off after the third mention of potential criminal charges. Mom was waiting on the porch, just like I knew she would be. Tori froze in the car, gripping the door handle. I can't, she said. Not after everything I said to her. You can and you will. I got out and opened her door. Because that's what family does. We come home when we have nowhere else to go. Mom met us halfway down the path. For a moment, no one moved. Then Tori crumpled, falling into Mom's arms like she was 5 years old again. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. Shh, Mom stroked her hair. Let's get you inside. Later, after Tori had showered and fallen into an exhausted sleep, I found Mom in the kitchen making tea. She left a note, Mom said, holding out a crumpled paper. On her pillow. I found it when I was making up her room. I read it, my hands shaking. I know I don't deserve your help, but I don't know who else to trust. Everything's falling apart, and it's all my fault. Please don't turn me away. She's going to need us, Mom said, pouring 3 cups of tea. The worst is still coming. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Your sister's lucky to have you. But be careful, she's desperate, and desperate people do desperate things. As if on cue, I heard Tori's voice from upstairs. No, you listen. I don't care what it takes. Find something on Emma. Everyone has secrets. Dig deeper. I exchanged looks with Mom. The road ahead would be harder than we thought. One step at a time, Mom said, reading my expression. First, we get her through tonight. I nodded, picking up a cup of tea to take to Tori. Whatever she was planning, whatever was coming next, she wouldn't face it alone. Not this time. You need to stop this, Tori, I said, barging into her room and holding up my phone. On the screen was a news alert. Former CEO accused of harassment campaign against board members. Tori barely looked up from her laptop. 3 days at the beach house had done little to temper her revenge plotting. They deserve everything coming to them. The restraining order Emma just filed says otherwise. She's lying. Tori slammed her laptop shut, just like she lied about everything else. Did she, or did she just expose your lies? Tori stood up, pacing the small room like a caged animal. You don't understand. I had plans. The Asian merger was going to save everything. If she'd just given me more time to lose more people's money? I picked up a stack of newspapers from her desk. Have you even read these? The pension fund is gone, Tori. People who worked for Dad for 30 years have nothing. I can fix it. How? By digging up dirt on Emma? By threatening the board members? I threw the papers down. When does it stop? A knock at the door interrupted us. Mom stood there, holding her phone. Tori, honey, your lawyer's on the line. He says it's urgent. Tori grabbed the phone and disappeared downstairs. Mom gave me a worried look. She's getting worse, I said. I know, but last night when you were at work, she told me something. Mom lowered her voice. About Dad. About why she really took the company. What do you mean? Before Mom could answer, Tori's voice exploded from downstairs. They can't do this. I built that company. We rushed down to find her pacing the living room, phone pressed to her ear. No, you listen to me. I don't care about the optics. Fight this. She hung up and threw the phone across the room. They're suing me. The board, the shareholders, everyone. They want everything. Tori, Mom started. Don't. Tori whirled on her. Don't try to make this better. You have no idea what I've been through, what Dad put me through. Then tell us, I said quietly. Tori laughed, a harsh, broken sound. Tell you, fine. You want to know why I took the company? Why I needed to prove myself? She turned to Mom. Because Dad told me I was just like you. Weak, emotional, unable to make the hard choices. Mom went pale. What? The night before he died, he called me to his office. Said he was changing his will, leaving me the company instead of splitting it. Said I had to be different from you. Better. Tori's voice cracked. He said the only way to succeed was to be ruthless, to cut out anything, anyone who might hold me back. Oh, honey, Mom whispered. So I did it. I became what he wanted. Cut out my weakness. Tori's eyes filled with tears. And look where it got me. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, I spoke. Dad was wrong. Was he? Tori gestured around. Mom stayed strong through his abuse, his affairs, everything. And what did she get? A broken-down beach house and a daughter who abandoned her. No, Mom said firmly. I got peace. I got to keep my soul. And now I have both my daughters back. You don't want me back, Tori whispered. I'm poison. Everything I touch turns to ash. I crossed the room and grabbed her shoulders. Then let it burn. Start over. How? The lawsuits will take everything. Then let them. I shook her gently. Give it up, Tori. All of it. The company, the money, the revenge, just let it go. And then what? Her voice was small, almost childlike. Then we rebuild. Together. I pulled her into a hug, feeling her resist for a moment before collapsing against me. But first, you have to stop fighting. Mom joined us, wrapping her arms around both of us. Your father was wrong about so many things, she said softly. Don't let him be wrong about you too. Tori's phone buzzed from where it had landed. She pulled away to retrieve it, reading the message with shaking hands. Emma's offering a deal, she said. If I cooperate with the investigation, return what's left of the pension fund, they'll ask for leniency. Take it, I said immediately. But take it, Tori. End this. She looked between Mom and me, then down at her phone. Finally, she nodded. Okay, she whispered. Okay. As she stepped outside to call her lawyer, Mom touched my arm. She's going to need us more than ever now. I watched my sister through the window, standing at the edge of the deck, looking out at the ocean. I know. And this time we'll be there. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters when we arrived. Tori gripped my hand, her fingers ice cold despite the summer heat. Gone were the designer suits and perfect makeup. She wore a simple blue dress Mom had bought her at the department store. Ready? I asked. She nodded, her face pale but determined. I have to do this. The camera started flashing as soon as we emerged from the car. Reporters shouted questions. Miss Bailey, what do you say to the employees who lost their pensions? Any comment on Emma's testimony? Are the rumors of offshore accounts true? Lyle and Mom flanked us like bodyguards as we pushed through the crowd. Just before we reached the doors, I heard a familiar voice. Tori? Wait. Emma stood at the bottom of the steps, looking immaculate as always. Tori froze. What are you doing here? I demanded. Haven't you done enough? I came to give her this. Emma held out a USB drive. It's everything. All the evidence, including things the board doesn't know about yet. Tori stared at the drive. Why? Because you're going in there to tell the truth, aren't you? Emma's voice softened. This will prove you're being honest. It might help. Tori reached for the drive with trembling fingers. I don't understand. You destroyed me. No, Emma said firmly. You destroyed yourself. I just couldn't watch you take everyone else down with you. Inside the courtroom, Tori sat before the judge, her voice steady as she detailed everything. The fraudulent contracts, the hidden losses, Dad's manipulation, her desperate attempts to prove herself. And the pension fund? The judge asked. I've liquidated everything, Tori replied. My properties, investments, everything of value. It covers about 60% of what was lost. And the remaining 40%? I'll spend the rest of my life paying it back if I have to. The judge studied her for a long moment. Miss Bailey, do you understand the severity of your actions? Yes, Your Honor. Tori's voice cracked. I destroyed people's lives trying to live up to a legacy that was toxic to begin with. I became exactly what my father wanted, and in doing so, I lost myself. The sentencing felt both harsh and merciful. 5 years probation, complete restitution of funds, community service, a lifetime ban from serving as an officer in any public company. Outside, the reporters were still waiting. But this time, Tori faced them directly. I have a statement to make, she said, her voice carrying across the crowd. To everyone I hurt, the employees, the shareholders, my family, I am deeply sorry. I can't undo what I did, but I will spend every day trying to make it right. Back at the beach house, we sat on the deck watching the sunset. Mom brought out coffee, and for a while, no one spoke. I got a job offer today, Tori finally said. I turned to her, surprised. Already? The community center where I'll be doing my service hours. They need someone to teach basic business skills to at-risk youth. She smiled weakly. Ironic, right? Actually, I said, it's perfect. It pays almost nothing. But it's honest work, Mom added. That's worth more than any salary. Tori's phone buzzed. Her first new phone, a basic model to replace the expensive one she'd had to sell. It was a text from Emma. You did the right thing today. Good luck. She's not wrong, I said, reading over her shoulder. You did good today, sis. I'm scared, Tori admitted. I don't know how to be normal, how to live without all the things I thought made me successful. Lyle, who'd been quiet until now, spoke up. Success isn't about what you have. It's about who you are. And who am I now? Tori asked softly. You're my daughter, Mom said, taking her hand. You're Vada's sister. You're someone who faced her mistakes and chose to make them right. You're starting over, I added. And this time, you're not alone. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the ocean in shades of gold and pink. Tori leaned her head on my shoulder, just like she used to when we were kids. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not giving up on me." "That's what family does," I replied. "We hold on, even when it's hard, even when it hurts, even when we don't deserve it." Especially then. As darkness fell, we could hear the waves crashing against the shore. The sound was the same as it had always been, constant and unchanging, like the love that had brought us back together. "So," Tori said, managing a small smile, "about that community center job." And just like that, we began to rebuild. The autumn wind carried the scent of salt and coffee as I stepped onto the community center's back patio. Tori stood at the railing, watching her students file out after their evening business class. "Miss T," one teenager called out, waving. "I got that job at the cafe." "That's fantastic, Maria," Tori beamed. "Remember what we talked about with the register counts?" "Trust but verify," Maria replied with a grin before running off to catch up with her friends. I handed Tori a coffee. "Look at you, making a difference." "They make the difference," she said, watching the kids leave. "I just show them how." The setting sun painted the parking lot gold, reminding me of another sunset not so long ago, when everything had seemed broken beyond repair. "Got something to show you," I said, pulling out an envelope. Tori opened it and gasped. Inside was a check. The final restitution payment for the pension fund. "How?" she whispered. I still had 3 more years of payments. "Remember that tech startup Mom invested in? The one you helped her evaluate? The solar panel company? That actually worked?" I nodded. "Mom sold her shares yesterday. She wants you to have the money to clear the debt." Tori's hands shook. "I can't accept this. After everything," she said, and I quote, "Tell her it's not a gift. It's an investment in who she's becoming." Tears spilled down Tori's cheeks. "I don't deserve any of this." "Hey," I turned her to face me. "Remember what you tell your students about second chances? That they're not given, they're earned." She wiped her eyes. I keep waiting for everyone to remember who I was and turn their backs. Who you were isn't who you are." My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "Don't forget, dinner at 6. Lyle's bringing the ring." Tori read the message over my shoulder and managed a watery smile. "So he's finally going to do it?" "Yeah. He wanted to make sure you'd be there." "Me? Why?" "Because you're my sister, dummy. And he knows how much that means." We gathered our things and headed to the parking lot. As we walked, a familiar figure stepped out from behind a car. "Emma?" Our former adversary looked different. Softer somehow, in jeans and a sweater instead of her usual power suits. "I hope you don't mind," she said. "I wanted to see for myself." "See what?" Tori asked warily. "If the rumors were true, about you teaching here, making a difference." Emma smiled. "The board's been talking about starting a foundation for at-risk youth. We could use someone who understands both business and second chances." Tori stared at her. "Are you offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a chance to expand what you're already doing. These kids trust you, Tori. You could help more of them. I'll think about it." Emma nodded and turned to leave, then stopped. "For what it's worth, I like this version of you better." After she left, Tori and I stood in the gathering darkness. "Well?" I asked. "I don't know. The community center needs me." "They'll always need you, but maybe you can help them and do more." Tori linked her arm through mine as we walked to my car. "When did you get so wise?" "Probably around the same time you got so humble." At the beach house, Mom was setting the table while Lyle nervously fiddled with his pocket. The engagement ring would stay hidden until dessert, but we all knew what was coming. "Before we start," Tori said, standing, "I have something to say." She pulled out the restitution check. "Mom, I can't take this." "Yes, you can," Mom replied firmly. "No, listen. I want to use it to start a scholarship fund. For kids like Maria, who deserve their own second chances. The pride in Mom's eyes could have lit up the whole beach. Even better. As we sat down to eat, I looked around the table. At Mom, who never lost faith. At Lyle, who stood by us through everything. At Tori, who lost everything only to find something more valuable. Remember when you said I'd regret choosing Mom's side? I asked her softly. She winced. I was so wrong. No, I said, squeezing her hand. You were right. I do regret it. She looked at me, startled. I regret that it took losing you to bring you back to us. Really back to us. Tori squeezed my hand back. Me too, sis. Me too. Outside, the waves crashed against the shore, constant and unchanging. But inside, everything had changed. And finally, wonderfully, it had changed for the better.
The crystal champagne flute shattered in my grip, sending shards across the marble floor of my own dining room. Silence fell over the birthday gathering as all eyes turned to me, but I barely noticed the sting of the cut on my palm. All I could focus on was the satisfied smirk on Vivian's face as she finished her latest verbal assault. My name is Adeline, and this was supposed to be my 35th birthday celebration. Instead, it became yet another stage for my mother-in-law's favorite performance. Let's remind everyone how inadequate Adeline is. Oh dear, do be careful with the crystal. Some of us know how to handle fine things, Vivian said, adjusting her pearl necklace. Though I suppose we can't all have that natural grace, can we? I watched a drop of blood fall from my palm to the floor. My husband, Forrest, predictably, became intensely interested in his phone screen. Here, let me help you with that. Livia, my best friend, appeared at my side with a napkin, wrapping it around my hand. Her eyes met mine with silent support. Really, Adeline, Vivian continued, addressing the room more than me. I told Forrest he should have let me plan this party. The catering is adequate, I suppose. But these plates? From Target. At least you tried, dear. The plates were hand-painted Italian ceramic, but I didn't bother correcting her. I'd learned long ago that facts were irrelevant in Vivian's world. Actually, I picked those plates. Trinity, my coworker, spoke up from across the room. They're from that little boutique in Milan, the one featured in Architectural Digest last month. Vivian's smile tightened. Well, they certainly look mass-produced. Randolph, my business partner, cleared his throat. Speaking of production, Adeline, didn't you just close that major deal with— Oh, please, Vivian interrupted, waving her hand dismissively. Let's not discuss business at a social gathering. It's so nouveau riche. She turned to Forrest. Darling, remember when I threw your 35th? Now that was a party. The governor attended, remember? I excused myself to the kitchen, clutching the bloody napkin. Livia followed, closing the door behind us. I swear to God, Adeline, one of these days I'm going to— Don't, I cut her off, running my hand under cold water. It's not worth it. The hell it's not. Did you see Forrest just sitting there, while his mother— I saw. My voice was steadier than I felt. I always see. The kitchen door swung open, and Trinity slipped in, followed by Randolph. Your mother-in-law is currently explaining to everyone how you clearly couldn't afford proper lighting for the dining room, Trinity reported, which is hilarious, considering you literally designed the lighting system for half the high-rises downtown. You can't keep letting her do this, Randolph said quietly. You're one of the most successful architects in the city. You've won awards. You're about to— I know. I dried my hands, straightening my shoulders. Trust me, I know. The door opened again, and Forrest poked his head in. Mother's wondering where everyone went. The cake. Of course, I replied, my voice honey-sweet. We wouldn't want to keep your mother waiting. Back in the dining room, Vivian had positioned herself at the head of the table, my seat. As the staff brought out the cake, she began regaling everyone with stories about Forrest's childhood, pointedly excluding me from every anecdote. I watched her hold court, saw how she'd orchestrated the entire evening to remind me of my place in her hierarchy, watched my husband of 10 years pretend not to notice, felt the weight of every slight, every dismissal, every carefully crafted insult she'd delivered over the years. Something inside me shifted. Maybe it was the way the cut on my palm throbbed. Maybe it was catching Vivienne's reflection in the window, preening as she commanded everyone's attention. Or maybe it was simply time. Actually, I said, standing up, I'm not feeling well. I think we should end the evening here. Vivienne's eyes gleamed with triumph. Oh dear, not handling your wine well. I did try to teach you about proper portions. I met her gaze steadily. Thank you all for coming, especially you, Vivienne. You've made this evening unforgettable. As guests began gathering their things, I caught snippets of Vivienne's stage whispers. Poor dear, never could handle hosting. And, Forrest deserves someone more capable. I stood at the door, accepting hugs and goodbyes, the cut on my palm a constant reminder. Livia squeezed my arm as she left, Trinity and Randolph both giving me meaningful looks. Later, as I lay in bed, listening to Forrest apologize for his mother being herself, I made a decision. This would be the last birthday where Vivienne Anderson made me feel small. I had something coming that would change everything. And this time, I wouldn't be the one caught off guard. The morning after my disastrous birthday party, I sat in my office, staring at the email that would change everything. The board's decision was unanimous. I would be the new CEO of Anderson and Steele Architecture, effective immediately. You haven't told Forrest yet, have you? Randolph leaned against my door frame, 2 coffee cups in hand. I shook my head, accepting the coffee he offered. He thinks I'm still just the creative director. Actually, he thinks I'm playing at being creative director. Your husband seriously doesn't know you own 40% of the company. Vivienne convinced him years ago that my position here was a courtesy appointment. I took a sip of coffee, remembering that conversation. She told everyone at the country club I was the office decorator. Randolph's laugh was sharp. The office decorator who designed the new Performing Arts Center and just landed the international airport contract. My phone buzzed, a message from Vivienne. Darling, I've taken the liberty of scheduling you for etiquette refresher courses. Last night was quite embarrassing. Delete it, Randolph advised, watching my face darken. Focus on what's coming. Speaking of which, I pulled up my calendar. The International Architecture Awards Gala is in 3 weeks, where you'll be announced as both CEO and recipient of the Innovation in Sustainable Design Award. Randolph grinned. Have you decided how you're going to play it? Before I could answer, Louisa, my assistant, rushed in. Adeline, your mother-in-law is in the lobby. She's insisting on taking you to lunch to discuss your behavior. Perfect timing, I said, standing up. Send her up. Randolph raised an eyebrow. You sure? Trust me. 5 minutes later, Vivienne swept into my office like she owned it, designer handbag swinging. Really, Adeline, that display last night was unacceptable. What will people think? About what specifically, Vivienne? I remained seated, watching her search for the most commanding position in the room. Your emotional outburst, the broken glass, leaving your own party early. I've always said Forrest needed someone more stable. Stable, I repeated, thinking of the contract paper in my desk drawer. Like the foundation of a building. She waved her hand dismissively. Don't try to talk business, dear. It doesn't suit you. Now, about these etiquette classes. I have a better idea, I interrupted, pressing the intercom. Louisa, could you bring in the Thompson portfolio? Louisa appeared with the blueprints for our latest project, a sustainable luxury hotel that had made headlines. What's this? Vivienne asked, irritation creeping into her voice. The Thompson Hotel project. You mentioned it at the country club last month. Said it was a shame your son's company had lost the bid to some upstart firm. Her perfectly lined lips tightened. Well, yes, it was quite disappointing for Forrest. Except Anderson and Steele won that bid. I spread the plans across my desk. My design, my pitch, my project. Don't be ridiculous. Forrest would have told me. Forrest doesn't know. I met her eyes. Just like he doesn't know about the airport contract, or the Performing Arts Center, or the 40% ownership stake I have in this company. The color drained from her face. You're lying. The International Architecture Awards Gala is in 3 weeks. You should come. Bring Forrest. I'm sure you'll both find it educational. She stood abruptly. I don't know what game you're playing. No games, Vivian. Just business. I smiled. Which, as you've pointed out, I know nothing about. After she stormed out, Randolph reappeared. That was bold. She won't tell Forrest, I said, gathering the blueprints. Her pride won't let her admit she was wrong about me. She'll come to the gala expecting to prove me a liar. And instead, she'll watch me accept my award and CEO position in front of every major player in the industry. I paused, including the governor she's so proud of knowing. Trinity poked her head in. Was that the dragon lady I saw leaving? She looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. More like the first taste of her own medicine, Randolph said. My phone buzzed again. Livia, this time. Lunch. Need to hear about the aftermath of last night. Go, Randolph urged. You've earned a break. We'll finish the gala preparations tomorrow. As I gathered my things, Trinity asked, Are you sure you want to wait 3 weeks? You could just tell Forrest tonight. I thought about all the dinner parties where Vivian had belittled me. All the times Forrest had looked away, all the years of carefully constructed humiliation. Some lessons, I said, are better learned in public. Walking to meet Livia, I felt lighter than I had in years. The cut on my palm had scabbed over, but I pressed it gently, remembering, sometimes you need to bleed a little before you can heal properly, and sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold. It's served under spotlights, with an audience, and a standing ovation. The invitations have to be perfect, I told Louisa, watching her sort through sample cards, especially the one for Vivienne. Gold embossing, heavy cardstock, and just pretentious enough to make her feel special. Louisa held up an elegant cream-colored invitation. Exactly. She needs to think this is Forrest's moment. We were in my office after hours, finalizing details for the gala. The city lights twinkled through the floor-to-ceiling windows, reminding me of all the nights I'd spent here building my career while Vivian assumed I was getting manicures or shopping. Speaking of Forrest, Louisa said carefully, he called earlier, asked about your late nights at the office. What did you tell him? That you're working on a special project, which isn't a lie. My phone lit up with a text from Forrest. Mother's worried about you, says you're acting erratic. Dinner at her house tomorrow. Erratic, I muttered, showing Louisa the message. 3 weeks of focusing on work instead of attending her charity luncheons. And suddenly I'm erratic. Mrs. Anderson did stop by reception twice this week, Louisa revealed, trying to get information about your schedule. Before I could respond, Trinity burst into the office. We have a situation. Vivienne was just at LeBlanc. LeBlanc was where all the society wives had their weekly gossip sessions, disguised as lunch. And, I asked, though I already knew it wouldn't be good. She was telling everyone you're having some sort of breakdown. Said you've been making wild claims about your position here, that you're embarrassing Forrest. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Of course she is. That's not all, Trinity continued. She's been calling board members' wives, trying to dig up dirt on you. Let her dig, I said, turning to my computer. Louisa, send out the invitations tomorrow. Trinity, make sure the press releases are ready to go the morning after the gala. Already done, Louisa confirmed. Though I did have to promise the governor's office 3 separate interviews to guarantee his attendance. Perfect. Vivian would never miss a chance to network with him. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Randolph. Turn on Channel 7 News, now. Trinity grabbed the remote, and we watched as the evening news covered a story about the Thompson Hotel project. The reporter was interviewing someone I recognized, one of Vivienne's closest friends. Concerns about the project's leadership, the woman was saying. Sources say the firm may not be as stable as they claim. That witch, Trinity breathed. She's trying to sabotage the project. I picked up my phone, dialing Randolph. Tell me you're handling this. Already on it. I've got statements from our major investors ready to go. And the Thompson family is willing to do an interview tomorrow, confirming their confidence in us. Good. And Randolph. Make sure they specifically mention who designed their hotel. After hanging up, I turned to find both Louisa and Trinity staring at me. What? Are you sure you want to keep waiting? Trinity asked. She's escalating. That's exactly why we wait, I said, pulling up the gala seating chart. She's getting sloppy, making mistakes. By the time the gala arrives, she'll have shown everyone exactly who she is. Louisa's phone chimed. The venue manager needs final numbers for the seating arrangements. Put Vivian at table 1, I instructed. Front and center. I want her to have the perfect view when everything falls apart. Trinity leaned over my shoulder, studying the chart. You're seating her with the governor's wife, bold, and the wives of every board member she's been calling. Let them see her reaction up close. My phone lit up with another text from Forrest. Made reservations at Mother's Club for Friday. She wants to discuss your behavior. You're not going, are you? Trinity asked, reading the message. Oh, I'm going. I smiled. In fact, I'm going to be perfectly pleasant. Let her think she's winning. Louisa started gathering the invitation samples. Should I cancel your actual Friday meetings? No need. I'll have lunch with Vivian, then head straight to the airport to sign the international contract. She can spend the afternoon telling everyone how I waste my time while I'm literally expanding the company globally. A knock at the door made us all look up. It was the cleaning lady, looking apologetic. Sorry to interrupt, but there was a woman here earlier asking questions about Ms. Adeline's schedule. She said she was family. Let me guess, I said. Elegant, perfectly coiffed, wearing pearls? The cleaner nodded. Next time, tell her I'm in a very important meeting. Don't specify what kind. I turned to Trinity and Louisa. Vivian's getting desperate. She knows something's coming, but she can't figure out what. 3 weeks, Trinity said. 3 weeks, I confirmed, looking out at the city I was helping build, one design at a time. And then we'll see who's really erratic. Trinity cornered me in the office kitchen 2 weeks before the gala, her face unusually serious. We need to talk, now. She practically dragged me into the conference room, closing the door behind us. I was at La Maison last night. La Maison was Vivian's favorite restaurant, where she held court with her social circle every Wednesday. And Forrest was there, with her. Trinity's hands were shaking slightly. You need to hear what I recorded. She pulled out her phone, and Vivian's distinctive voice filled the room. Really, darling, I've been saying for years she's not suitable. Remember that lovely girl I introduced you to last summer? The one from the right family? Mother, please. Forrest's voice, tired but not disagreeing. Adeline's been acting strange lately. But, strange? She's delusional, claiming she's some sort of executive here? I spoke with Margaret, and she assured me the board would never allow such a thing. We need to consider having her evaluated. I'm sure it won't come to that. Of course it will, and when it does, we'll make sure everyone knows it was for her own good. The divorce will be much cleaner that way. The recording ended. I sat very still, my hands flat on the conference table. There's more, Trinity said quietly. They're planning something for the gala. I couldn't hear exactly what, but Vivian kept mentioning making sure you're exposed properly. Did you tell anyone else about this? Just Randolph. He's pulling together contingency plans for... The door opened, and Forrest walked in. Trinity and I froze. Adeline, your assistant said you were in here. He looked between us. Everything okay? Fine, I said smoothly. Just reviewing some presentations. Did you need something? Mother wants to know if you're free for tea tomorrow. She's concerned about you. I bet she is, I thought. Actually, I have a client meeting tomorrow. Very important. You've been saying that a lot lately. He frowned. Mother thinks... I'm sure she does. I stood up. Tell her I'm sorry to miss tea. I'm sure she can find someone else to critique for an afternoon. That's not fair, Adeline. She's trying to help. Trinity made a sound that might have been a laugh or a cough. Was there anything else? I asked. Some of us have work to do. After he left, Trinity turned to me. You're still not going to tell him about the CEO position? No, let him find out with everyone else. I meant about the recording, about his mother plotting your downfall over creme brulee. I gathered my papers. He wouldn't believe it. He never has. Back in my office, Randolph was waiting. Trinity told you. I nodded. We should move up the announcement, he said, before Vivian can. No, we stick to the plan, but, I smiled slightly. Maybe we add some insurance. I pressed the intercom. Louisa, get me the governor's office, and then call Livia. Tell her I need her PR expertise. That evening, I arrived home to find Forrest in the living room, looking troubled. Mother says you've been spreading rumors about the company, he said without preamble, that you're causing problems with investors. Interesting. I poured myself a glass of wine. And what do you think? I think you've been working too hard. Maybe you should take a break, let someone else handle things for a while. Someone your mother approves of, he sighed. Why do you always make everything about her? My phone buzzed. A message from Livia. Press release drafted. Governor's wife confirmed for pre-gala interview. You're going to love this. You're right, I told Forrest. Let's not talk about your mother. Let's talk about the gala instead. You are coming, aren't you? Mother says it's important for appearances. Of course she does, I thought. Good. It's going to be quite memorable. Later that night, I received another text, this time from Trinity. Vivian's been calling board members again, trying to suggest you're unstable, unfit for leadership. I replied, perfect, let her dig her own grave. Then I called Randolph. Move Margaret to Vivian's table at the gala. The board member's wife, who's been feeding her false information. Exactly. I want them to have front row seats to each other's humiliation. You're scary sometimes, you know that. I learned from the best, I said, thinking of all Vivian's careful social manipulations over the years, the students about to surpass the teacher. After hanging up, I stood at my home office window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Vivian was probably plotting my professional demise over expensive wine, while Forrest nodded along, convinced he was being supportive by staying neutral. 2 weeks. 2 weeks until everything changed. Let them plot. Let them scheme. Let them think they know what's coming. They had no idea. You need to see this, Livia announced, bursting into my office with her laptop. Someone sent me an email from an anonymous account 1 week before the gala, and the tension was building. I gestured for her to sit. It's a series of emails between Vivian and several board members' wives, Livia continued, turning the screen toward me. Dating back months, she's been systematically trying to undermine you. I scanned the emails, my jaw tightening. She told them I was sleeping with clients to get contracts. Keep reading. The emails got worse. Vivian had crafted an elaborate narrative about my supposed mental instability, suggesting I was embezzling company funds to support a gambling addiction. She'd even hinted that my recent erratic behavior might be drug-related. Who sent this to you? I asked. Margaret. Livia smiled. Apparently, she's been playing double agent, recording conversations, saving emails. She's got videos of Vivian at social events, openly plotting to have you removed from the company. Trinity appeared in the doorway. The governor's wife is here for the pre-gala interview. Perfect timing. I stood, straightening my jacket. Livia, get those emails to our legal team. Trinity, make sure the photographer gets good shots of me with the governor's wife. The interview took place in our main conference room, overlooking the city. Mrs. Bradford, the governor's wife, was surprisingly warm. I've been following your work for years, she said, as the photographer set up. That performing arts center design was brilliant. Funny, I replied. Vivienne Anderson told me you found it garish and nouveau riche. Mrs. Bradford's eyebrows shot up. Did she? Interesting, considering I specifically praised it at the last charity board meeting. She was there. She does seem to have trouble remembering certain things, I said diplomatically. After the interview, Randolph pulled me aside. We've got another problem. Vivienne has been calling our major clients, trying to warn them about my supposed instability. Worse, She's telling them the company is about to undergo major leadership changes, suggesting they might want to delay any pending contracts. My phone buzzed. Forrest. Mother wants us both for dinner tonight. Says it's important. Go, Randolph advised, reading the message over my shoulder. Keep her thinking she's in control. Vivian's house was exactly what you'd expect. A showcase of old money and careful curation. That evening, she'd set an elaborate table for 3. Darling, she greeted me with air kisses. You look tired. Those late nights at the office must be so draining. Actually, I feel great. I took my seat. The gala preparations are coming along beautifully. About that, she poured wine with practiced grace. I've been hearing concerning things. Perhaps it would be better if you didn't attend. Forrest shifted uncomfortably. Mother. No, darling, this needs to be said. Adeline, your recent behavior has been troubling, making grandiose claims about your position, spreading rumors. What claims specifically concern you, Vivienne? She waved her hand dismissively. This fantasy about being some sort of executive. Really, dear, it's embarrassing. My phone buzzed again. A message from Louisa. Final seating chart approved. Press confirmed. Governor's office sent over his speech. He specifically mentions your achievements. You know what's interesting? I said, putting my phone away. How hard you've worked to keep me small. All these years, every slight, every dismissal, every carefully orchestrated humiliation. The color drained from Vivian's face. I don't know what The emails were particularly creative. Drug addiction, gambling. You must have stayed up nights crafting those stories. Forrest looked between us, confused. What emails? Nothing you need to worry about, darling. Vivian said quickly. Adeline is clearly what? I stood up. Unstable? Delusional. Better be careful with those accusations, Vivian. They might come back to haunt you. Is that a threat? No, I smiled. It's a preview. See you at the gala. Outside, Forrest caught up to me. Adeline, wait. What's really going on? I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time in weeks. You know, for years I wondered why you never defended me. Now I realize you're just like her, so convinced of your own superiority that you can't see what's right in front of you. What's that supposed to mean? Come to the gala, I said, getting into my car. Find out. As I drove away, my phone lit up with messages from Trinity, Livia, and Randolph, all confirming different pieces falling into place. 1 week, 7 days, until Vivian's carefully constructed world came crashing down. And this time, I wouldn't be the one picking up the pieces. The Grand Plaza ballroom glittered with 1,000 lights, each one reflecting off the crystal chandeliers I'd specifically chosen for tonight. Guests in formal wear mingled, champagne flowed, and the air buzzed with anticipation. Vivienne just arrived, Livia reported through my earpiece. She's wearing red. Of course she was. She always wore red when she wanted to be the center of attention. Everything's set, I asked, adjusting my black designer gown. Press is in position, governor's on his way, and… Livia paused. Margaret just texted. She has the video ready. I watched from the mezzanine as Vivian made her entrance, Forrest trailing behind her. She headed straight for the governor's wife, already playing her social games. Ready? Randolph appeared beside me. Born ready. We descended the grand staircase together, and I felt Vivian's eyes lock onto us immediately. She was probably wondering why I looked so confident, why I was entering with one of the firm's founding partners. Adeline, she air-kissed my cheeks. Darling, you really should have consulted me about the seating arrangements. There seemed to be some unfortunate mix-ups. No mix-ups, I assured her. Everyone is exactly where they should be. Forrest approached, looking uncomfortable in his tuxedo. The governor's asking for you. Is he? Vivian preened. Well, we shouldn't keep him waiting. He's asking for Adeline, Forrest clarified. The flash of anger in Viviana's eyes was quick but unmistakable. Well, I'm sure he'd like to see us all. Before she could maneuver her way into the conversation, Trinity appeared. Adeline, the press needs you for photos. With the governor. I could feel Vivian following as I made my way through the crowd, trying to insert herself into the moment. The governor greeted me warmly. "There's our woman of the hour," he boomed. "My wife hasn't stopped talking about your interview." Vivian pushed forward. "Oh, Governor, you remember me. We met at the—" "Later, please," his aide interrupted. "Photos first." I posed with the governor while Vivian seethed in the background. Cameras flashed, capturing what would become tomorrow's business section headlines. "Speech time in 10 minutes, Louisa whispered as she passed by. I made my way to my seat, noting with satisfaction that Vivian was positioned perfectly, close enough to see everything, but not part of the main action. "What's going on?" Forrest asked, taking his assigned seat beside his mother. "Why is everyone treating this like it's your event?" "Because it is," I replied simply. The governor took the podium, and the room fell silent. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "we're here tonight to celebrate excellence in architecture and design. But more than that, we're here to recognize a visionary leader." I saw Vivian lean forward, probably assuming he meant Forrest. "Someone who has transformed our city's skyline, who has brought sustainable design to the forefront of modern architecture. Someone who, as of today, becomes the youngest CEO in her field." The color drained from Vivian's face. "Please join me in congratulating Adeline, not only on her appointment as CEO of Anderson & Steele Architecture, but also as this year's recipient of the International Innovation in Sustainable Design Award." The room erupted in applause. I stood, making my way to the podium, as Vivian grabbed Forrest's arm. "This is ridiculous," I heard her hiss. "Do something." But there was nothing he could do. The screens around the ballroom lit up with images of my projects, my achievements, my journey to this moment. "Thank you, Governor," I began. "This is an incredible honor." From my position at the podium, I could see everything. Margaret smirking at Vivian, the board members nodding approvingly, the press furiously taking notes. "Architecture isn't just about buildings," I continued. "It's about foundation, structure, truth." I paused, meeting Vivian's eyes. "Sometimes, people try to undermine that foundation. They spread rumors, create false narratives, attempt to destroy what others have built." The screen switched to display emails. Vivian's emails, her careful campaign of destruction, laid bare for all to see. "But a well-built structure can withstand any attack," I said, as gasps and murmurs filled the room. "As long as its foundation is solid." Vivian stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Forrest sat frozen, finally seeing the truth he'd ignored for so long. "To everyone who supported me, who believed in my vision, thank you." I raised my glass. "And to those who doubted, who tried to tear me down," I smiled directly at Vivienne. "Thank you too. You taught me exactly what kind of leader I don't want to be." The applause was deafening, but I barely heard it. I was too focused on Vivian's face as her carefully constructed social empire began to crumble. And this was only the beginning of the evening. The chaos that erupted after my speech was exactly what I'd anticipated. Vivian stood at her table, her perfectly manicured hands gripping the back of her chair as her social circle physically distanced themselves from her. "This is slander," she announced to anyone who would listen. "I'll sue." "With what evidence?" Margaret asked sweetly, holding up her phone. "I have recordings of every conversation where you plotted against Adeline. Would you like me to play them?" Forrest finally found his voice. "Adeline, what is all this?" "Your mother's been busy," I said, approaching their table. "Want to hear her plans for my psychiatric evaluation? Or maybe the rumors she spread about drug addiction?" The gambling stories were particularly creative. "Mother?" Forrest turned to Vivienne. "What is she talking about?" "She's lying." Vivienne's voice rose shrilly. "She's manipulating everyone, just like she manipulated her way into this position." Trinity stepped forward, tablet in hand. "Actually, we have the board's unanimous vote recorded, along with documentation of every project Adeline has led over the past 5 years. Would you like to see the revenue figures?" The governor's wife approached, her face stern. Vivian, I think it's best if you step down from the hospital board. We can't have someone who engages in character assassination representing our charity. But I've been on that board for 20 years. Vivian's carefully crafted facade began to crack. Yes, Mrs. Bradford replied. 20 years of taking credit for other people's work, just like you tried to do with Adeline's achievements. More people were gathering now, years of Vivian's victims, finally finding their voice. Remember when she said my catering business was quaint? One woman said. Ben tried to steal my contracts. She told my husband I was having an affair with my business partner. Another added, nearly ruined my marriage. Forrest stood up, looking lost. I don't understand. Mother, these people are telling the truth, I finished for him. Just like I've been trying to tell you for years. You ungrateful little. Vivian lunged forward, but Randolph stepped between us. Security, he called calmly. I believe Mrs. Anderson needs some air. As two discreet security guards approached, Vivian played her final card. Forrest, are you going to let them treat your mother this way? But Forrest was staring at the screens, still displaying evidence of his mother's campaign against me. All those times you said Adeline was imagining things. I did it for you. Vivian's mascara was starting to run. She was never good enough for you, never good enough for our family. Good enough? I laughed. I built half the buildings in this city's skyline. I turned this company's profits around. I won international awards. The only thing I wasn't good enough for was your ego. Please escort Mrs. Anderson out, Randolph instructed security, and make sure the press gets her statement about suing us. I'm sure they'll be very interested in discovery. As Vivian was led away, still protesting, the governor approached. Impressive handling of a difficult situation, he said. Your new sustainable city project proposal. I'd like to discuss it over lunch next week. Of course, Governor, my assistant will set it up. The party gradually returned to normal, though the buzz was decidedly different now. I watched as Vivian's former friends huddled in groups, probably realizing they needed to realign their social allegiances. Adeline. Forrest touched my arm. I don't know what to say. That's not surprising, I replied. You haven't known what to say for 10 years. I never knew she was doing all this. You thought I was overreacting, imagining things, being difficult. I turned to face him fully. Tell me, what's your excuse for all the times you saw her behavior firsthand and did nothing? He had no answer. That's what I thought. I gestured to Louisa, who appeared with a manila envelope. These are divorce papers. Your mother was right about one thing. Our marriage is over. Just not for the reasons she planned. You can't be serious. Actually, I've never been more serious. I handed him the envelope. I designed my life, just like I designed my buildings, with careful planning, strong foundations, and no room for toxic structures. As he stood there, envelope in hand, looking as lost as I'd ever seen him, I felt nothing but relief. Enjoy the rest of the party, I said. I have a city to build. I walked away to where my real support system waited. Trinity, Livia, Randolph, and Louisa. Behind me, I could hear the whispers, see the phones coming out as people spread the news of Vivian's downfall. Well, Livia said, handing me a fresh glass of champagne. That was something. That, I replied, was just the foundation. Wait until they see what I build next. The night wasn't over, but the hardest part was done. I'd finally broken free of the prison Vivian had built around me, brick by careful brick, and I'd done it by building something stronger, my own empire of truth. The morning sun streamed through my office windows as I reviewed the final designs for the Sustainable City project. The governor's endorsement had fast-tracked everything, and construction would begin next month. Package for you, Louisa said, placing a thick envelope on my desk. Hand-delivered. I recognized Forrest's handwriting immediately. Inside was a letter, along with what looked like old photographs. Also, Vivian was spotted house hunting in Florida, Louisa added. Apparently, the social exile here became too much. How the mighty fall, I murmured, unfolding the letter. Before I could read it, Trinity burst in. Turn on the news, now. The business channel was running a feature on women in architecture, using my story as their centerpiece. But what caught my attention was the crawl at the bottom of the screen. Vivian Anderson resigns from all charity boards amid scandal. Full story at 11. That's not even the best part, Trinity grinned. Margaret just called. Apparently, Vivian tried to join 3 different country clubs in Palm Beach. They all rejected her membership. Karma, Louisa said, is a beautiful thing. I turned my attention back to Forrest's letter, reading aloud. Adeline, I found these while clearing out Mother's house. She kept a file on you, documenting every achievement she tried to diminish. Looking at them now, I see what I refused to see before. Your talent, your vision, your strength. The photos showed my early projects, newspaper clippings of my awards, even sketches I thought I'd lost years ago. There's more, Trinity said, reading over my shoulder. I won't ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know I'm getting help, learning to see the patterns Mother created, the way she manipulated everything and everyone. The divorce papers are signed. The house is yours. It's time I built my own life. Without Mother's blueprint, Randolph appeared in the doorway, ready for the board meeting. Just a minute, I gathered the photos, pausing at one of my first design that won an award. The one Vivian had dismissed as amateur. The boardroom was full when I entered. These meetings felt different now. No more subtle undermining. No whispered doubts about my capabilities. The Sustainable City project is generating unprecedented interest, Randolph announced. Thanks to Adeline's innovative design, we've secured funding for the next decade of development. My phone buzzed, a message from Livia. Lunch, got tea to spill, about Vivian's failed attempt to join the Garden Society. One more item, I said to the board. I'd like to propose a mentorship program for young female architects. Give them what I never had: support, recognition, and a clear path to leadership. The vote was unanimous. As people filed out, Margaret lingered. You know, she said, watching Vivian's downfall has been satisfying. But watching you rise, that's been inspiring. Back in my office, I found another surprise, a young woman waiting nervously with her portfolio. I'm sorry to interrupt, she said, standing quickly. Your assistant said you might have a minute. I'm graduating from architecture school, and after seeing your story, I thought about all the doors Vivian had tried to close, all the talent she'd tried to suppress. Come in, I said. Show me what you've got. Later, walking through the city with Livia, I pointed out my buildings, each one a testament to surviving Vivian's attempts to destroy me. Look what came today, Livia said, showing me her phone. The local paper's society page featured Vivian at a small Florida cafe, alone, no pearls in sight. The headline read, "Former Society Queens Fall from Grace Continues." You know what's better than revenge? I asked, stopping to admire the performing arts center I'd designed. Success, real, earned, undeniable success. Speaking of success, Livia nodded toward a construction site across the street. Isn't that where your new women's business center will be? Breaking ground next week. We're calling it the Phoenix Center. Rising from the ashes? Livia smiled. Something like that. My phone chimed. An email from the governor's office, confirming my appointment to the state's Urban Development Board, the position Vivian had coveted for years. Perfect timing, I said, showing Livia the email. The board meets in that building, right there, the one I designed last year. We laughed together, standing in the shadow of my creation. Around us, the city pulsed with life, each building telling its own story. But mine was written in steel and glass, reaching toward the sky, impossible to ignore or diminish. I'd built something Vivian could never tear down, a legacy of truth, strength, and redemption. And I was just getting started. Come on, I told Livia. I've got a city to rebuild. This time, no one would stand in my way.
The room wouldn't stop spinning. That's the first thing I remember about that night. The nauseating way everything blurred together like a carnival ride gone wrong. I'm not a lightweight. One glass of wine doesn't turn me into a stumbling mess. But there I was, gripping the bathroom counter at my in-laws' summer barbecue, trying to piece together how I'd gotten there. My name is Lexi, and that was the night I realized my brother-in-law was trying to destroy me. Lexi, you okay in there? My husband Russell's voice came through the door, tinged with concern and something else, embarrassment maybe? I'm fine, I managed, though my voice sounded foreign even to me. Just need a minute. The party sounds filtered through the walls. Laughter, the clink of glasses, my mother-in-law Meredith's distinctive laugh. Everything felt wrong, distorted. I'd only had that one glass of wine, the one Chandler had handed me with his trademark $1,000,000 smile. Chandler, the golden boy, the successful older brother who could do no wrong. I splashed water on my face, trying to clear my head. When I looked in the mirror, my pupils were huge. That's when I knew. This wasn't just alcohol. The door opened, and Kimberly, my sister-in-law, poked her head in. "Oh, honey," she said, her face a mask of pity. "Maybe you should lie down. Chandler told everyone you seemed a bit off earlier." Of course he did. I gripped the counter harder. "Kim, something's wrong. I only had one drink." She gave me that look, the one I'd come to know well in the 5 years since I'd married into the family. The poor Lexi, always making a scene look. "Let's get you somewhere quiet," she said, taking my arm. As she led me through the house, I caught fragments of conversations. Never seen her like this before. Russell must be mortified. At a family gathering of all places. We passed Chandler in the hallway, holding court with a group of relatives. He caught my eye and smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. That's when a memory flashed. Him by the drink table, his back turned, doing something with his hands just before bringing me that wine. "Wait," I tried to pull away from Kimberly. "I need to talk to Chandler." "Not now," she hissed, tightening her grip. "You've caused enough embarrassment for one night." In the guest room, she helped me lie down. The ceiling swayed above me like waves. "Kim," I grabbed her wrist before she could leave. "Please believe me, something's wrong." She sighed. "Just sleep it off, Lexi. We'll talk tomorrow when you're yourself again." After she left, I heard voices in the hallway. Chandler's smooth baritone. "Poor thing, always trying so hard to fit in." Russell's response was muffled, but I caught the words, "Maybe we should leave early," and "Sorry about this." I wanted to scream, to run out there and confront Chandler, but my body wouldn't cooperate. The room kept spinning, and darkness crept in at the edges of my vision. The last thing I remember was Sophia, my cousin, slipping into the room and placing a cool cloth on my forehead. "Something's not right," I whispered to her. "I know," she said quietly. "I saw him buy the drinks. You're not crazy, Lex." The next morning, I woke up in my own bed with a pounding headache and crystal clear memories of Chandler's calculating smile. Russell was already up, making coffee downstairs. I could hear him on the phone. "Yeah, she's still sleeping it off," he was saying. "I know, Mom. I'll talk to her about it." "Yes, I'm embarrassed too." I sat up slowly, rage replacing the fog in my brain. Chandler had orchestrated the whole thing, drugged me, made me look unstable, and somehow came out looking like the concerned brother-in-law, and everyone had bought it. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. "We need to talk. I found something about Chandler." I stared at the message, my hands shaking. 5 years of snide comments, subtle undermining, and now this. He'd finally crossed a line, thinking I'd stay quiet to keep the peace like always. But this time would be different. This time, I had proof, and Chandler was about to learn that he'd picked the wrong woman to mess with. I heard Russell's footsteps on the stairs, no doubt coming up to give me a lecture about my behavior. Let him come. I had nothing to be ashamed of. and soon everyone would know exactly what kind of man Chandler really was. "You're sure about this?" I asked Sophia, staring at the laptop screen in her small home office. 3 days had passed since the barbecue incident, and my hands still shook when I thought about it. "Look at the pattern." Sophia pointed to the series of social media posts she'd uncovered. 4 different women, 4 similar stories, all at events where Chandler was present, all experiencing the same symptoms you described. My stomach churned as I read through the posts. None named Chandler directly, but the timestamps aligned perfectly with charity galas and business functions he'd attended. "There's more," Sophia said, pulling up another window. "Remember Angela from the country club? She left town suddenly last year?" "Yeah, Meredith said she had a nervous breakdown or something." Sophia's expression darkened. "I found her blog. She wrote about being drugged at a club fundraiser. Guess who was on the planning committee?" My phone buzzed. Another text from Russell. I'd been avoiding him since our fight yesterday morning. "You can't keep accusing my brother without proof," he'd said. "He's worried about you. We all are. Maybe you should talk to someone." "I need concrete evidence," I told Sophia, ignoring the message. "Something they can't dismiss as me being paranoid or unstable." "We could talk to Angela," Sophia suggested. "She might." A knock at the door made us both jump. Kimberly stood in the doorway, her face tight with concern. "Thought I'd find you here," she said. "Russell's worried sick. You haven't been answering his calls." "I've been busy," I said, closing the laptop. "Busy spreading rumors about Chandler?" Her voice took on an edge. "He told us you've been calling his business associates, asking questions." "Did he tell you what kind of questions?" I stood up, facing her. "About the women who've mysteriously fallen ill at his events? About the missing charity funds from last year's gala?" "Stop it," Kimberly snapped. "You're embarrassing yourself. Chandler built that charity from nothing. He helps people." "Like he helped Angela?" Sophia interjected. Kimberly's face paled slightly. "That's different. She was unstable." "Was she?" I pressed. "Or did Chandler make her look unstable, just like he's doing to me?" "I can't listen to this." Kimberly turned to leave, but paused. "Meredith's hosting dinner tomorrow night. She wants everyone there to clear the air. Don't make things worse, Lexi." After she left, Sophia pulled up another document. "Look at this. Financial records from the charity. Large withdrawals, always after major fundraising events." "Can we prove where the money went?" "Not yet, but..." Sophia's phone chimed. She read the message, her eyes widening. "Morgan just texted. She wants to meet. Says she has information about Chandler, but we have to be careful." Morgan, the family friend who'd worked with Chandler at the charity for years. My heart raced. "When?" "Tonight. The coffee shop on Oak Street." I grabbed my purse. "Let's go." The coffee shop was nearly empty when we arrived. Morgan sat in a corner booth, nervously shredding a napkin. She looked up as we approached, her face drawn. "I shouldn't be here," she said quietly. "If Chandler finds out..." "He won't," I assured her, sliding into the booth. "What do you know?" Morgan glanced around before pulling out a USB drive. "Financial records, emails, everything I could copy without being noticed. He's been skimming from the charity for years, but that's not the worst part." She lowered her voice. "The drugs? He keeps them in his office. I've seen him with them. The night of the barbecue, I saw him take something from his desk before leaving. My hands trembled as I took the USB drive. "Why are you helping me?" Morgan's eyes filled with tears. "Because I saw what he did to Angela. I stayed quiet then, told myself I was imagining things. I can't do it anymore." As we left the coffee shop, Sophia squeezed my arm. "This is it, Lexi. Real proof." My phone buzzed again. "Russell." This time I answered. "Where are you?" he demanded. "We need to talk." "Yes, we do," I said, clutching the USB drive. But first, there's something you need to see. The truth was finally within reach, but as I drove home, dread settled in my stomach. Tomorrow's dinner would change everything. The question was, would my family believe the evidence, or would Chandler find a way to twist this too? One thing was certain, I couldn't back down now, not when I finally had proof of what kind of man my brother-in-law really was. Russell's face grew paler with each document we reviewed on our living room couch. The USB drive contained years of doctored financial records, suspicious email exchanges, and most damning, a series of text messages about keeping things quiet after charity events. "This can't be real," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. "My brother wouldn't—" "There's more," I said, pulling up the blog posts Sophia had found. "Read what Angela wrote." As he read, his hands began to shake. "Why didn't she come forward?" "Would you have believed her?" I asked quietly. "Over Chandler?" Before he could answer, his phone lit up with Chandler's name. Russell stared at it, then declined the call. "He's been trying to reach me all day," I said. "Probably knows Morgan talked to us." "Morgan?" Russell's head snapped up. "You need to warn her. If Chandler suspects—" My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. 911, Morgan just called. C showed up at her apartment. "I'll drive." Russell grabbed his keys, his face set with determination I hadn't seen since this started. Morgan's apartment was only 15 minutes away, but it felt like hours. When we pulled up, Chandler's black Mercedes was parked outside. "Stay here," Russell ordered, but I was already out of the car. We could hear raised voices from Morgan's second-floor apartment. Russell took the stairs 2 at a time, with me right behind him. "You have no idea what you've done," Chandler's voice carried through the door. "Everything I built, leave her alone." Russell's shout cut through the night as he burst through the unlocked door. The scene inside froze. Morgan backed against her kitchen counter, Chandler looming over her, a laptop open on the table between them. "Russell?" Chandler's smooth facade slipped for just a moment before recovering. "Thank God you're here. Morgan's been spreading lies." "Save it." Russell's voice was ice. "I've seen the proof." "Proof?" Chandler laughed, but his eyes darted to the laptop. "Whatever they showed you is fake. They're trying to destroy our family. Like you tried to destroy Angela?" Morgan's voice shook but held firm. "I saved everything, Chandler. Every email, every transaction." "You ungrateful little—" Chandler lunged for the laptop, but Russell stepped between them. "Touch her, and I'm calling the police," I said, phone already in hand. Chandler straightened his jacket, that familiar calculating look crossing his face. "Think about what you're doing, Russell. I'm your brother. Are you really going to believe these women over your own blood?" "These women?" Russell's voice cracked. "One of them is my wife, who you drugged at our family barbecue." "She was drunk," Chandler scoffed. "Making a scene like always. Tell me, Lexi, how long did it take you to convince my brother to turn against me, to poison him with your paranoid delusions?" "Don't," Russell warned, stepping closer. "Don't you dare try to twist this." My phone buzzed again. "Sophia, police are on their way. Stall him." Chandler must have seen something in my expression because his eyes narrowed. "What did you do?" Sirens wailed in the distance. Chandler's face contorted with rage. "You've ruined everything," he snarled, grabbing his keys. "All of you." "Chandler, wait!" Russell reached for him, but Chandler shoved past, thundering down the stairs. Tires squealed as his Mercedes peeled away, just as police cars rounded the corner. Morgan collapsed into a chair, shaking. He was trying to delete the files, but I already backed everything up. "He's going to destroy me for this." "No, he won't," Russell said firmly, putting a hand on her shoulder. "We won't let him." 2 police officers entered the apartment, and the next hour was a blur of statements and questions. When we finally got home, it was past midnight. Russell sat heavily on our couch, looking older than I'd ever seen him. "All these years," he whispered, "all the signs I ignored because he was my brother." "It's not your fault," I said, sitting beside him. "Tomorrow's dinner at Mom and Dad's," he said. "They need to know everything before Chandler spins his version of events." My phone lit up with a final message from Sophia. "Just heard from a friend at the DA's office. They're opening an investigation into the charity's finances. It's happening, Lex." I showed Russell the message, watching reality settle over him like a heavy blanket. "He's not gonna go down quietly," I said. "No," Russell agreed, taking my hand. "But this time, he's not facing you alone. Tomorrow would bring its own battles, but for the first time since the barbecue, I felt steady. The truth was out there, impossible to ignore. Now we just had to make Chandler's biggest supporters, his parents, see it too." The silence at Meredith and Hugh's dinner table was deafening. Russell had just finished showing them the financial records and explaining the previous night's events with Morgan. Meredith's hand trembled as she set down her wine glass. "This is ridiculous," she said, but her voice lacked its usual conviction. "There must be some explanation." "There is," Hugh's voice boomed across the table. "Someone's clearly fabricated these documents to frame Chandler." "Dad," Russell leaned forward. "Morgan worked with him for years. She has proof." "That girl always was jealous of Chandler's success," Meredith cut in. "And now she's convinced you both to participate in this witch hunt." My phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. "Angela's agreed to meet. She's flying in tomorrow." Before I could respond, the front door opened. Kimberly rushed in, her face flushed. "Have you seen the news?" she demanded, holding up her tablet. "They're saying the charity's under investigation. Chandler's face is everywhere." Hugh snatched the tablet, his complexion darkening as he read. "This is your doing," he pointed at me. "You've never accepted Chandler, always trying to create drama." "Stop it." Russell slammed his hand on the table, making the dishes rattle. "Look at the evidence, Dad. Really look at it." "Where's Chandler?" Meredith's voice quivered. "Why isn't he here defending himself?" As if on cue, my phone rang. An unknown number. I answered on speaker. "Hello, Lexi." Chandler's voice filled the room, smooth as ever. "I hope you're enjoying destroying our family." "Chandler, where are you?" Meredith cried. "Ask your daughter-in-law, Mother. She's the one who's orchestrated this whole thing. But don't worry, I'm not going down alone." "What does that mean?" Russell demanded. "It means," Chandler's voice turned cold, "that I have my own evidence about everyone. Did you know, Mother, that your perfect Russell has been embezzling from his own company? And Lexi, those prescription drugs in your bathroom cabinet, they're not in your name, are they?" My heart stopped. The pain medication from my car accident last year. I'd used Russell's prescription when mine ran out. "That's enough," Hugh growled. "Come home, son. We'll fix this." "Fix it?" Chandler laughed. "Like you fixed things when I was 17? When you paid off that girl's family to keep quiet?" The color drained from Hugh's face. Meredith gasped. "We swore never to speak of that," she whispered. "Well, now everyone's gonna know everything," Chandler said. "I've sent a very detailed email to several news outlets. Should be published any minute now." Russell's phone pinged. He looked at it, then at his father. "Dad? What girl?" Hugh's hands shook as he collapsed into his chair. "It was a mistake. We thought we'd handled it." "You ruined her life." Chandler's voice was eerily calm. "Just like Lexi's trying to ruin mine. So now everyone's secrets come out." "Chandler, please," Meredith begged. "We can still fix this." "Too late, Mother. Check your emails." The line went dead. Immediately, phones around the table started buzzing with notifications. "Oh, God," Kimberly whispered, reading her screen. He's exposed everything, everyone. I opened my own email. There it was, a massive thread detailing decades of family secrets, including my medication incident. But something caught my eye. Russell? I grabbed his arm. Look at the email header. He squinted at it, then his eyes widened. This was sent from his office computer. I was already dialing Sophia. He's at the charity office. Call Detective Martinez. You're not calling anyone. Hugh stood up, his authority reasserting itself. This stays in the family. Like you kept that girl's assault in the family? Russell's voice was deadly quiet. No more covering for him, Dad. Meredith began to cry. Kimberly sat frozen, still scrolling through Chandler's revelations. My phone buzzed again. Sophia. Police are heading to the charity office. Angela's landing in 2 hours. I'm going, I announced, standing up. Anyone who wants the full truth, come with me. I'll drive, Russell said immediately. To everyone's surprise, Kimberly stood too. I want to look him in the eye when he explains this. As we headed for the door, Meredith called out, Please, he's still your brother. Russell turned back. No, Mom. Right now, he's a criminal about to face justice. You can either help us stop him or keep enabling him. Your choice. We left Hugh and Meredith sitting in their pristine dining room, surrounded by the wreckage of their family's secrets. In the car, Russell gripped the steering wheel tight. The charity office is 20 minutes away, he said. Let's end this. I nodded, watching the streetlights blur past. Chandler thought he could destroy us all, but he'd forgotten one thing. The truth, once exposed, couldn't be buried again. The charity office building loomed dark against the night sky, except for one illuminated window on the 3rd floor. Police cars lined the street, their lights silent but spinning. He's still up there, Detective Martinez met us at the entrance. We've got the building surrounded, but he's refusing to come out. Let me talk to him. Russell stepped forward, but the detective shook her head. He's demanding to speak with Lexi, alone. Absolutely not, Russell grabbed my arm. I'll do it, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. But I want to wait for Angela first. As if on cue, Sophia's car pulled up. Angela stepped out, looking smaller than I remembered, but her jaw was set with determination. I brought everything, she said, clutching a manila envelope. Police reports I never filed. Hospital records, everything. A crash echoed from upstairs, followed by the sound of breaking glass. Detective Martinez grabbed her radio. He's destroying evidence, I said. We need to go up now. I'm coming with you. Angela stepped forward. Me too, Kimberly said quietly. When we all turned to look at her, she lifted her chin. I need to see who my brother really is. The detective nodded to her officers, and we moved toward the elevator. Russell caught my arm. Be careful, he whispered. He's cornered now. That makes him dangerous. The elevator ride felt endless. When the doors opened to the 3rd floor, we could hear Chandler moving around his office, the sound of papers shredding. Stay behind me, Detective Martinez whispered, drawing her weapon. We approached the office door. Through the glass, I could see Chandler feeding documents into a shredder, his usually perfect hair disheveled, suit jacket discarded. Chandler, I called out, open the door. He looked up, that familiar calculating smile spreading across his face. Lexi and Angela too? What a reunion. He hit the door lock release. Detective Martinez entered first, weapon raised. Step away from the shredder. Of course. Chandler raised his hands, still smiling, though I'm afraid most of the interesting documents are already gone. Not all of them. Angela stepped forward, holding up her envelope. I kept everything. The smile flickered. Angela? Still holding on to the past? We both know nobody believed you then. Why would they now? Because now there's proof. Kimberly's voice cracked as she held up her phone, displaying the email thread. How could you, Chandler? All these women? Please, he scoffed. They wanted to be part of this world. I just showed them the cost of admission. By drugging them? I stepped closer. By destroying their reputations when they threatened to expose you? You were all so eager to believe the worst. He turned to the window. A few pills, a few rumors, and your perfect lives crumbled. It was almost too easy. Until now, Angela said firmly. Chandler's shoulders tensed. You think this changes anything? Dad will hire the best lawyers. The family will close ranks. They always do. Not this time. Kimberly's voice was steel. I've already sent everything to the board of directors. Your resignation letter goes out tomorrow. He spun around, mask finally cracking. You wouldn't dare. I made you who you are. No. She stepped back. You made me complicit. That ends tonight. More officers entered the office. Detective Martinez moved forward with handcuffs. Chandler Moore, you're under arrest. He lunged suddenly, not toward the detective, but at me. His hands found my throat as we crashed into the desk. You ruined everything, he snarled. Everything happened at once. Officers shouting, Angela screaming, Kimberly crying out. Then Russell's voice cut through the chaos. Get away from my wife! The pressure on my throat vanished as Russell tackled his brother. They hit the ground hard, years of brotherly trust shattering like the glass beneath them. Officers pulled them apart, Chandler now truly disheveled, blood trickling from his lip. As they cuffed him, he started laughing. You still don't get it, do you? He looked at each of us. I'm not the villain here. I just played by the rules our parents taught us. Appearances matter more than truth. Power matters more than people. No, Russell said quietly. You're exactly the villain, and now everyone will know it. As they led Chandler away, he called over his shoulder. Better watch your back, Lexi. Family secrets have a way of destroying everyone they touch. Detective Martinez touched my arm. We'll need statements from all of you. I nodded, rubbing my throat. Through the window, I could see more police cars arriving, news vans following close behind. By morning, everything would be public. Are you okay? Russell pulled me close. No, I answered honestly. But I will be. Angela and Kimberly stood together by the shredder, picking up scattered papers. The night wasn't over. There would be statements to give, questions to answer, family to face. But watching Chandler's perfectly crafted world crumble around him, that made every moment worth it. The morning headlines hit like a tsunami. Prominent charity director arrested. Family empire crumbles. Years of abuse exposed. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since dawn. Turn off the TV, Russell said, walking into our living room where the news played on repeat. We've seen enough. Your parents called again, I said, showing him the missed calls. 15 times since breakfast. They can wait. The DA wants to meet with us in an hour. A knock at the door made us both jump. Kimberly stood there, looking exhausted. Mom and Dad are at the police station, she said, stepping inside. They're trying to post bail. Of course they are, Russell muttered. That's not all. Kimberly pulled out her tablet. 3 more women have come forward since last night. The story's everywhere. My phone rang. Sophia. Angela's interview just went live, she said when I answered. You need to see this. We huddled around Kimberly's tablet, watching Angela speak directly to the camera, her voice steady. I was 22 when Chandler first targeted me, she said. He waited until I was vulnerable, isolated, made everyone think I was unstable, and he didn't just do it to me. The interview cut to footage of Chandler being led out of the charity office in handcuffs, then to photos of his previous victims. Turn it off, Russell said hoarsely. Another knock, this time Detective Martinez with Morgan. We found something in the office safe, the detective said, holding up a small black book. Names, dates, amounts. He kept records of everything, including blackmail, Morgan added. He had dirt on everyone who could expose him. That's why he was so confident, I realized. He thought he was untouchable. The DA's pushing for maximum charges, Detective Martinez continued. But we need you all to testify. I'll do it, Kimberly said immediately. I enabled him for too long. My phone buzzed again, Meredith calling. This time I answered. How could you do this to us? She sobbed. To your family? How could you protect him all these years? I shot back. How many lives did he ruin while you looked the other way? You don't understand, she pleaded. We did what we had to. No, Russell took the phone. You did what was easy, and now you're still trying to protect him instead of his victims. We're done, Mom. Don't call again. He hung up, hands shaking. The press is outside your parents' house, Morgan said softly. They're asking about the girl from when Chandler was 17. She's coming forward too, Detective Martinez added. Says she's tired of carrying the secret. Russell sank onto the couch. I should have seen it. All those years. We all should have. Kimberly sat beside him. But he was good at making us see what he wanted. Another buzz. A text from Angela. Thank you for believing me. For all of us. The DA's office was a fortress of activity when we arrived. Phones ringing, people rushing between offices, papers everywhere. The charity board's cooperating fully, the DA told us in her office. They're turning over everything, but we need to move fast. Your parents have hired 3 separate law firms. What do you need from us? I asked. Everything. Every detail, every incident, every cover-up you witnessed. Chandler's going down, but we need to make sure he can't hurt anyone else. As she spoke, her assistant rushed in. Ma'am, you need to see this. He handed her a phone. A video was playing. Chandler in his holding cell, speaking directly to the camera. If I'm going down, he said, his familiar smile now twisted with malice, I'm taking everyone with me. Every secret, every lie, every dirty deal this family's ever made. By the time I'm done, there won't be anything left to salvage. The DA looked up. This just went viral. He must have had someone smuggle in a phone. Russell stood. Let him talk. No more secrets, no more cover-ups. Whatever he says, we face it together. My phone lit up with a message from Sophia. Hugh's at the hospital. Apparent heart attack after seeing the video. Kimberly gasped when I showed them. We need to go. No, Russell said firmly. We need to finish this. Dad made his choice a long time ago. The DA nodded. Let's get your statements now. Whatever Chandler releases next, we'll be ready. As we followed her to the conference room, I caught a glimpse of the news playing in the lobby. Chandler's booking photo stared back. That smug smile finally replaced with something else. Fear. Good, I thought. Let him feel what his victims felt. Let him finally face the consequences of his actions. The real battle was just beginning, but for the first time, the truth was on our side. The courthouse steps were packed with reporters as we made our way inside for Chandler's bail hearing. 3 weeks had passed since his arrest, and the scandal had only grown. Ms. Lawson, they shouted, what's your response to Chandler's latest allegations? Did you know about the offshore accounts? Is it true your father-in-law's condition is critical? Russell gripped my hand tighter as we pushed through. Inside, Angela and Morgan waited with our lawyer. He's already here, Morgan whispered, and Meredith's with him. The courtroom was standing room only. Chandler sat at the defense table, still wearing his expensive suit, but his usual polish had faded. Meredith sat directly behind him, her face drawn. All rise, the bailiff called. As the judge entered, I caught Chandler staring at me. His lips curved into that familiar smirk, and he mouthed 2 words. "Watch this." The proceedings began normally enough. The prosecution outlined the charges: drugging, financial fraud, blackmail. Then Chandler's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my client would like to address the court." The judge peered over her glasses. Unusual at a bail hearing, but proceed. Chandler stood straightening his tie. "Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to confess." A gasp rippled through the courtroom. His lawyer grabbed his arm, but Chandler shook him off. "Not to these ridiculous charges," he continued, "but to the real crime here, the systematic corruption of an entire family." "Objection!" The prosecutor jumped up. "Let him speak," the judge said, looking intrigued. Chandler turned to face the gallery. "My dear sister-in-law Lexi thinks she's exposed some great truth, but she's only scratched the surface. Shall we talk about how my father built his empire? How many people he destroyed?" "Chandler, please," Meredith whispered. "Or how about my brother Russell? So righteous now. But where did he think the money for his startup really came from?" Russell tensed beside me. "And Lexi." Chandler's eyes found mine. "Sweet, innocent Lexi. Did you tell them about the real reason you left your last job? About the married man?" "That's enough," Russell stood. "Order." The judge banged her gavel. "I have proof of everything," Chandler announced. "Documents, recordings, photographs. I protected this family for years, covered every dirty secret. And this is how they repay me?" "Your Honor," his lawyer interrupted, "my client is clearly under stress." "I'm clearly the only honest one here," Chandler shouted. "Every accusation against me, they knew. They all knew. Ask my mother about the trust fund she set up for my victims. Ask my father about—" "Stop," Meredith cried out, standing. "Please, I'll tell them everything." The courtroom froze. Chandler's smirk faltered. "Mrs. Moore?" The judge leaned forward. Meredith's voice shook. "The trust fund is real. We knew what he was doing. We thought we could control it, contain it. Hugh said it was better to handle things quietly." "Mom, shut up," Chandler hissed. "No." She straightened her spine. "I'm done protecting you. I'm done destroying other families to save our reputation." She turned to Angela. "I'm so sorry. We should have stopped him years ago." Chandler lunged at the barrier separating him from his mother. "You stupid woman, do you know what you've done?" Officers rushed to restrain him as he thrashed and shouted, "I'll destroy you all, every last secret, every lie." Bail denied. The judge's voice cut through the chaos, and add witness intimidation to the charges. As they led Chandler away, he locked eyes with me one last time. The smirk was gone, replaced by pure hatred. Outside, reporters swarmed again, but this time Meredith stepped forward. "I have a statement to make," she said clearly, "about everything." "Mom, don't," Kimberly pleaded. "It's time," Meredith replied. "The truth isn't just what Chandler decides to reveal anymore." As she began speaking to the press, Russell pulled me aside. "What he said about your last job, it wasn't true," I said firmly. "But there will be more lies. He's not done yet." "Doesn't matter." Russell squeezed my hand. "We face whatever comes next together." My phone buzzed. "Sophia, Hugh's awake. He's asking for Russell." I showed him the message. "You should go. We should go," he corrected. "No more divisions in this family. We either heal together or break together." As we left the courthouse, I watched Meredith still speaking to the reporters, tears streaming down her face but voice steady. Behind her, Angela and Morgan stood supportive, united. Even Kimberly had joined them. Chandler had tried to break us with secrets and lies. Instead, he'd forced us to face the truth, all of it, ugly and raw and necessary. The healing could finally begin. The verdict took less than 2 hours. I sat between Russell and Angela as the jury foreman stood, holding the piece of paper that would end this chapter of our lives. On all counts, we find the defendant guilty. Chandler didn't flinch. He'd spent the entire trial wearing that same calculated smile, even as victim after victim testified against him, even as his own mother detailed decades of cover-ups. The judge's voice cut through the courtroom. The defendant will rise for sentencing. As Chandler stood, he turned to face us. Gone was the polished charm, replaced by cold hatred. Would the defendant like to make a statement before sentencing? The judge asked. Only this, Chandler's voice carried clearly. You think this ends here? You think you've won? Everything I said about this family was true. They're no better than me. They're just better at hiding it. That's enough, the judge interrupted. Based on the severity and duration of your crimes, I hereby sentence you to 25 years in state prison. The gallery erupted in whispers. Hugh, attending court for the first time since his heart attack, gripped Meredith's hand. Additionally, the judge continued, you are ordered to pay restitution to your victims and the charity. Your assets will be seized. You can't touch my assets, Chandler sneered. They're all offshore. Actually, Morgan stood up. The board already found them. Every account, every transfer, it's all being returned. For the first time, Chandler's smile cracked. As officers approached to take him away, he locked eyes with me. Enjoy your perfect little family, Lexi. Just remember, you're all still lying to each other. Some secrets never die. You're wrong, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. We're done with secrets. The officers led him out. The last thing we saw was his face contorting with rage as the doors closed behind him. Outside the courthouse, Hugh approached me slowly, leaning on his cane. Lexi, his voice was rough. I owe you an apology. All these years, I thought I was protecting my family. Instead, I was protecting a monster. We all have to live with what we enabled, Meredith added softly. But thanks to you, no one else will be hurt. Angela stepped forward. The foundation's being restructured. We're turning it into a support network for abuse survivors. Will you help us? Of course, I said, as Russell wrapped an arm around me. Kimberly joined us, holding up her phone. Chandler's last attempt at revenge just backfired. Those offshore accounts he mentioned, they've led investigators to 3 other predators in his circle. They're being arrested now. Good, Russell said firmly. Let them all face justice. My phone buzzed, Sophia sending a photo. The charity's new sign was being installed. The Phoenix Foundation, rising from ashes. It's perfect, Morgan smiled, looking at the image. A fresh start. Hugh cleared his throat. There's something else we need to discuss. The family estate? Dad, you don't have to. Russell began. Yes, I do, Hugh interrupted. I'm turning it into a shelter, a safe place for people escaping situations like what my own son created. It's time this family's wealth helped people instead of hiding crimes. Tears streamed down Meredith's face as she hugged him. A reporter approached, microphone ready, but Angela stepped between us. No more stories today, she said firmly. This family's done being headline news. As we walked down the courthouse steps together, victims and enablers, protectors and protected, all trying to heal, I felt lighter than I had in months. You know, Russell said quietly, Chandler was right about one thing. We're not perfect. No, I agreed, but we're trying to be better. That's what matters. Kimberly linked arms with me. So, family dinner tonight? No secrets, no lies, just family? I'd like that, I smiled. Behind us, the courthouse doors opened again. More victims emerged, supporting each other, finally free to tell their stories. Morgan and Angela went to greet them, offering welcome packages from the Phoenix Foundation. The truth hadn't destroyed us like Chandler promised. It had freed us. Every exposed secret, every painful confession had torn down the walls we'd built around ourselves. "Ready to go home?" Russell asked. I looked at our gathered family, not perfect, not unbroken, but real and honest at last. "Yes," I said, "I'm ready." We walked away from the courthouse together, leaving behind the shadows of secrets and the weight of silence. Ahead of us lay something harder, but infinitely more valuable: the truth in all its messy, healing glory. And this time, we'd face it together.